Hi, good morning to our Israeli audience and good afternoon to the Japanese. Thank you for participating in our second day of the Israel-Japan webinar from planter to plate. 本日はお集まりいただきありがとうございます。これより IJ ウィン主催、植物由来フードテック&アグリテックウェビナープランタートゥプレートを開催いたします。ビーガン&ベジタリアン農業の働きを仮想化するために日本とイスラエルから集まった著名人たちのパネルディスカッションをぜひお楽しみください。プログラムはほとんどが英語で行われますが、1週間後には通訳の字幕をつけた YouTube をアップロードしますので、そちらもぜひご覧ください。それでは皆さんよろしくお願いします。My name is Shira Priona. I'm a lawyer from Weiss Borat & Co., responsible of the Japan desk at the firm. I am one of the founders of Israel-Japan Women Innovation Network. We are IJWIN, an innovate network of Japanese and Israeli women who live in Israel and Japan. Our goal is to promote business and innovation of both countries and empower women through various activities. This 2 days webinar is the first part of an ongoing activity. We are aiming towards conducting a physical event in Japan at the end of this year or beginning of 2022. If you are interested to collaborate on this next event in Japan, please contact IJWIN. This webinar was divided into 2 days, and yesterday's session was food tech with a focus on plant-based food. We had a food tech innovation hub, vegan organization, key opinion leaders, and of course, startup companies. Today's session is dedicated to urban agriculture in the agri-tech field. With the massive growth of population and lack of good agricultural land, adding to that lack of working hands in the agriculture field, we need to get ready to the growing demand for food. But not only the food, it should also be healthy, sustainable, and responsible to our planet. One of the major problems of agriculture is facing is the loss of agricultural land. It seems that more and more land is lost, and it becomes more difficult to produce the amount of food needed to feed the growing population, human and animals. One of the solutions is urban agriculture, and we will focus on today's session on this topic. We will hear from a Japanese company's perspective to the agriculture and agri-tech, and also what Israeli innovation can contribute to the Japanese market. Also, Israelis and Japanese Agriculture Association to share their activities as well as a Japanese young farmer's experience from his ground. So let's hop in to listen to the speakers. I am honored to invite Mr. Daniel Kolber, head of Israel's Economic and Trade Mission to Japan in Embassy of Israel in Japan. Thank you. Please, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Shira-san, and I'm very happy to be here. I would like to congratulate you and all the people who worked hard to organize this wonderful event. And really, these times allow us to to bring more exposure, right, about the cooperations between Israel and Japan. And to give you an example, I just landed in this virtual room from another webinar that I was opening, and it's just great that in the physical world we're not able to do that, right? But now we can. So there are advantages and disadvantages for everything. Maybe I'll just say a few words about myself, about us. For those who don't know, because I see some familiar faces and others that perhaps I don't know. So together with our partners, we are working to promote collaborations between Israel and Japan in the commercial area. When I say we, it's the Economic and Trade Mission in Japan. We are part of the embassy. We are part of the Foreign Trade Administration at the Ministry of Economy of Industry. So like us, there are about 45 missions around the world, and we interact with the local ecosystem, companies, entities, and we try to match them with Israeli companies, Israeli entities. And really what we're interested in is to see success stories, so to see businesses, etc. So this is what drives us. And we're very happy about this because it allows us to bring all the good things that we have in Israel to the countries where we are based. So I personally love this kind of job, and especially on days like that, when we talk about food tech and agri-tech, really areas that were chosen for this event by the Israel-Japan Women's Innovation Network, looking at how to make the world a better place, right? And this is at the end what we want. We want to make sure that everyone has food, that we can produce more food with less resources. So using technology is what we can see is really a game changer. And throughout history, there are all different kinds of technological changes, but now we really see an acceleration with artificial intelligence, with drones, things that technology can help farmers is quite amazing. And of course, there are changes in society that are driving these changes. For example, and when we look in Japan, there are less and less working hands in agriculture, right? So aging population, less people working in this field, but obviously the food still needs to get to the plate, like is the title of the event. So how can we use more automation, and how can we use less resources to eventually bring more food, but food that will also be healthier, maybe food that will rely less on animals, making the environment also better. So what we've seen from our point of view at the Economic and Trade Mission is a lot of interest from Japanese corporations, Japanese entities in general, in what's happening in Israel in the field of agriculture. Of course, other fields as well. But we've seen companies like Kubota, for example, go to Israel. They set up first an innovation department, but then they go there to check up startups, and they start investing in Israeli startup. And other companies as well. And actually, I should probably not mention names, but to give an example, this is the kind of work that we are trying to do, is trying to connect the Israelis and the Japanese and create win-win partnerships. So, of course, we welcome this event. We are happy to be part of it. I think I'm sure you will be very interesting to listen to the lineup of speakers. And I certainly look forward to it. And I take the opportunity to invite you all to engage with us, to have a look at our website. It's in Japanese, and participate in events. For example, next week we will have the Israel-Japan Business Forum. So there's already almost 400 companies that registered, and we're going to have 2 hours of very interesting discussion, this time focusing on cooperations and opportunities in digital health, in smart cities, and in clean tech. So taking place on March 10. Just let us know if you want to sign up or check out our website. So without further ado, I wish us all a very successful event, and arigatou gozaimashita.
Thank you, Daniel, for the greetings. So the first speaker is Miss Ella Heller, Japan-Israel Collaboration Manager from Israel Innovation Authority. Ms. Heller was appointed in July 1970 to enhance the collaboration and activities in Australia and Japan by implementing the R&D agreements between the countries, conducting technology scouting activities for Israelis and Australian or Japanese leading SMEs and multinational companies seeking both investment and cooperation opportunities. Ms. Heller furthermore helps companies access funding for their technologies, including grants for cooperative R&D and pilots to the Japanese and Australian market. Please, Ella.
こんにちは、エラと申します。よろしくお願いいたします。I'm very happy to be here today to give you a brief introduction about what's going on here in the ecosystem and of course what the Israel Innovation Authority, which I'm part of, is helping, and by focusing about agriculture and food tech, which is the focus of this webinar today. So if I'm just let you share my screen. So the Israel Innovation Authority is not actually a new organization. It was established in the 70s by the name of the Chief Scientist Office. In 2016, we did a revision of this office to enhance the government arm, which aim to enhance the innovation, of course, to facilitate all the necessity of the ecosystem regarding innovation. So mainly we are the governmental arm that focuses on innovation and supporting innovation. So a bit about what's happening here in Israel, and I think even in the COVID era, we can see it more, how much the high tech is an essential part of the Israel economy. Even though only 9% of the total workforce of Israel is taking part in the high-tech sector in Israel, they are responsible of over 40% of the exports of Israel. So we can see here a good number, but also something that Israel Innovation Authority also is trying to solve is the number of people that taking part of this ecosystem. So a bit of what Israel is doing. Israel is investing almost 5% of their GDP in innovation. I think it's important to emphasize that most of the investments in R&D actually comes from the private market and not from the government. The government part is almost 3 to 5% of the investment in R&D. But you can see it's a very active ecosystem, and by just the new record number, even in the era of COVID-19, Israeli companies raised more than $10 billion US dollars just in 2020. So we can see that even though it was a challenging year, most companies in Israel were able, in the high-tech sector, continue working almost as usual. So just to give you an example of what happened in 2020, here you can see the top 6 exits that were in 2020. In total, the number of exits in US dollars was lower than last year, but the capital raising was actually a new record. You can see here the 6 top investments in 2020. So another question that we get a lot is what makes Israel so successful? I guess all the components here are quite obvious to all the participants here. You need to have good education, you need to have the funding, and of course you need to have the government and of course the multinational corporates to enhance this kind of ecosystem. I think the uniqueness of Israel is, first of all, we are a small country. So it's very easy to interconnect between all the components. Everyone knows everyone, so it's very easy to collaborate. And the second thing is also the Israeli culture. I don't know if you heard about the phrase chutzpah. The Israelis are not afraid to approach and of course to take risks. So it's kind of a culture advantage that Israeli has. So what is the Israel innovation or the government role in this ecosystem? I think it's important to emphasize that we don't try to compete the private market. We try to complement the private market. And how we do that, we are looking about what are the market failures in the Israeli ecosystem. Some of them are global, some of them are unique to Israel. And by conducting investments in projects and building new programs, we try to remove these barriers and of course to create new growth engines to the Israeli economy. So how exactly the Israel Innovation Authority works? Our approach is a bottom up. We are not trying to lead the market. The market knows better than us. So companies can propose us a project in all kinds of sectors and in all stages of innovation, from tech transfer to single entrepreneur to startups and even conglomerates and MNCs. How we do that? We do it by conditional loans. Companies can apply to us. We can give up to 50%, in some cases up to 85% of the R&D budget request. If the project that we invested in fails, it's a grant. If it succeeds, from the generate revenues from this project, they need to give us back up until the amount of the money that we gave them. We don't take equities, and we never give 100%. So you can see that we are not acting as a VC. Some numbers of 2019, because the number of 2020 are not yet finalized, but I can share with you that in 2020, we actually broke a new record of the number of applications that we got. We got in 2020 around 4,000 applications, and our annual budget actually stood around 2 billion new Israeli shekels, which is approximately between 600 and 700 million US dollars. This is kind of shows where the Israel Innovation Authority invests. So as you can see, the grays are what the private market invests, and in the dark blue is where the Israel Innovation invests. So you can see it's quite opposite. Where we see there is a lot of investments in the private market, it means that probably the companies don't need us. So you can see in software and a lot of cyber, there is actually cyber and fintech and automotive are the leading companies in raising capitals. But in healthcare, and you can see also agriculture and food tech, the market invests less. So this is where we take the initiative and invest in these sectors. So what are the market failure? Of course, there are something that is very global. Companies in very early stages that they have difficulties to raise the initial capital, and sectors that have a very lengthy ROI, for example, pharma. And there are things that are quite unique to Israel. For example, the underrepresentative of populations such as Arabs and women, and of course, to infuse innovation to the periphery of Israel. And we try to identify what will be the future tech wave and try to invest in infrastructure so companies will be able to work better in the ecosystem in Israel. So a few examples of how we support, and specifically also in food tech and agri-tech, we have the incubator program. Actually, 2 of the incubators that are supported by the IIA actually spoke in this webinar, and I mentioned the Kitchen and Fresh Start that are incubators that support food tech. We have another incubator called Tradelines that also support agri-tech. The initiative incubator actually started in the 90s, but it's actually owned by private companies, and we support the startups that the companies invite to the incubator. It's a 3-year program usually for the Israeli companies that are going to the incubator, and we support up to 85% of the R&D expenses of these companies. Another program that we're doing that also shows that kind of a market failure that we have here in Israel, companies has the company have some kind of difficulties to do pilots to find better site to do the scale up of the technologies. Another thing that we're doing, for example, with the Ministry of Agriculture, we supporting together with them for companies that want to do a scale up and find better site to do the pilot, and we'll support them financially up to 50% of their R&D expenses. Another, as I mentioned, we're looking towards the future. We have national program and strategic plans for sectors, for example, bioconvergence and quantum technologies. But as you can see, also food tech is taking very significant role also in the future tech wave that the Israel Innovation Authority is looking at. So a bit about what's happening in the globe. From our perspective, we have more than 70 R&D agreements around the globe, and one of them, of course, is with Japan. Our co-partner is NEDO. And how we do that? First of all, we have the ability to fund joint project within Japanese and Israeli companies via the binational program that we have with NEDO. Of course, we are also collaborating with other entities, which I'm very happy that Ms. Tatsumi will present from ATR, which we are also collaborating with them, and also Dia from Sompo, that we have an MNC agreement with them. So we try to find more partners to try and encourage collaboration between Japanese and Israeli entities, also in food tech and agri-tech, and also to support them financially by doing this kind of collaboration. Also, we are doing matchmaking between Israeli and Japanese companies. For example, in 2019, we set a delegation in precision agriculture to Osaka to participate in AgriWeek Osaka, which was very successful. We conducted together with the economic mission of Israel to Japan, more than 100 matchmaking between the 9 companies that we sent with Japanese companies and entities that participated in the exhibition. Just to finalize everything, we are here to facilitate the collaboration. We can also buy the Israeli companies by submitting proposal to the Israel Innovation Authority to support financially this kind of collaboration. If you wish to learn more about the program and what we can do for you, please feel free to contact us. You can see here the email. So thank you very much, and I hope that I gave you just a brief and precise information for you to use. So thank you very much. Domo arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you, Ella, for the ecosystem of the insight of ecosystem in Israel. So the next speaker is Ms. Makiko Tatsumi, Director of Strategic Management Unit and Business Development Office of ATR, Keihana Science City from Japan. Ms. Makiko Tatsumi has worked for Business Development Office since it was set up in 2014 at Advanced Telecommunication Research Institute International, ATR, leading institute in Keihana Science City, one of the 2 science cities in Japan. BDO of ATR has taken an initiative in creation of development of global innovation ecosystem in the Science City since 2016 under Keihana Research Complex Project, and she has played an integral role in establishing partnerships with key organizations in worldwide innovations ecosystems, as well as managing KGAP, Keihana Global Acceleration Program Plus. Please, Makiko-san.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and this opportunity. I'm going to present our activity to boost the global innovation ecosystem in Keihana Science City, as well as the agri-tech there. Yes, I'm Makiko Tatsumi, Director of the Business Development Office of ATL. This is a photo of Keihana Science City, and ATL is, wait a minute. This is Keihana Science City, and ATL is here, the center of Science City. Let's start from what is Keihana Science City. Yes, there are two science cities in Japan. One is Tsukuba, and Tsukuba is near Tokyo, and another is Keihana, located in Kansai region. More specifically, actually, even Japanese Keihana is not famous. So Keihana is located middle of the Kyoto, Nara, and Osaka. Yes, Keihana Science City is opened in 1989 after 32 years. Now the city has 153 R&D related institutes, both from public and private, including universities and cultural facilities. Compared to Tsukuba, Keihana features a lot of corporate research-related institutes such as Shimazu, Nidec, Kyocera, Panasonic, and Santry, Omron. Tsukuba is more public, I think. Also, in Keihana, residential area mixed within the science city, this is a strong point. These players have a positive effect on the formation of innovation ecosystem. I will talk about it later. Yes. ATL is a core institute in the Keihana Science City. ATL was established in 1986 and moved into the Science City when it opened. We are the first to be settled there. Our mission is that to promote pioneering and innovative research on information and communication field, and to implement the research result in society. To implement research result in society in collaboration with external organizations such as industry, academia, and the government in Japan and abroad. Our research field, neuroscience and deep interaction science, wireless communication, life science. Yes, and with the world-class results which constantly achieved, affiliated companies and the startups that have raised funds from Keihana ATL Fund worked on the social implementation. Besides, ATL has been taking initiative in building a global innovation ecosystem in the Keihana Science City for the last few years. Thanks to it, I'm here today. Our ecosystem is characterized by the participation and the collaboration of academia, industries, government, and local residents. Universities and R&D institute produce cutting-edge research field seeds, and also joint research between the academia and the enterprises is also being actively conducted. Enterprises work on the POC or pilot testing. Local residents often participate in the such project. Government supports these activities with funding and other activities. Here, examples of pilot testing with public involvement. This therapy for dementia patients. This is a music therapy and this is a robotic therapy. A core hospital and a care home in the region were willing to cooperate in the pilot testing. I want to emphasize the pilot testing for music therapy was conducted by Together, a motivated Israel startup. They participated in our acceleration program and they tried to expand their business into Japan and they succeeded. Other examples, the public road experiment and the smart energy project. Yeah, this webinar is about agri-tech. So I will share two examples of agri-tech in the Kei Han Na Science City. The first one is sand cultivation. This is an innovative farming method that uses sand for growing plants instead of soil or water. It is safe because there is no need to use farm equipment for tilling land. And also it's easy because automatic irrigation system can supply water and fertilizer. And it's comfortable because the workers can work without bending over. Yeah, sand cultivation enabled to grow a variety of vegetables and plant, many vegetables, yes, and maybe fruits. Yeah. With these features of sand cultivation, even elderly people and women can participate in the farming. So Tore Construction and I designed a sharing agriculture system in which local residents work share farming using sand cultivation. People who participate in the project use smartphone app to register the type of work and the day and the time they want to do it. The owner of the farm registered the work needed and the number of people. Then matching is done automatically. And the call is placed to the appropriate person. The person who answered the call was, oh, I will join. Yeah, it will do the work. Yeah. This is a wonderful system, I think, because it encourages local communication by allowing strangers to make a small chat with each other while doing each agriculture work. Another example of agri-tech in the Kei Han Na is the advanced hydroponic factory by Spread. Spread is a Kyoto-based company. Their mission is building a business that will contribute to creating a sustainable society and revitalization of the agricultural industry. In 2007, Spread constructed Kameoka plant in the north of Kyoto. At that time, it was the world's largest vertical farm in the term of production. After 6 years of trial and error, they established a cultivation and production management system. Yeah, they provide a vegetables to 2,400 supermarkets nationwide. In 2015, they opened a new facility called Techno Farm Kei Han Na in this region. With the concept for leading vegetable production system, new low-cost and more environmentally friendly system was first constructed in the Techno Farm Kei Han Na. These photos from Techno Farm Kei Han Na. Yeah. I hope you can see that Kei Han Na Science City is a great innovation city, but we will keep developing and ATL Tech initiatives, especially to promote the global open innovations. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, ATL is a top-notch research institute. However, in recent years, ATL has also been focusing on the business development and building a network of collaboration with the innovation authorities and the institute around the world. The number of organizations or persons which we collaborate is 306 in Japan and 202 outside Japan. In total, 508. It's a big number, especially we have a close relationship with Barcelona, Israel, India, Canada, New York. See the photos. Barcelona Activa, public incubation in Barcelona, and of course, Israel Innovation Authority, and Confederation Indian Industry, and for Canada, National Research Council of Canada, and ERA, it's a leading accelerator in New York City, have signed the MOU with ATL. Yes, Israel is our strong partner. Economic delegation visited ATL in 2017, including Mr. Cohen, Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, and Ms. Ben Ali, she's the ambassador, of course, and Mr. Appelbaum, Chief Scientist of the Chairman of IIA. Based over 2 years of collaboration, MOU was signed with the IIA in 2019. Yeah, we are honored to be witnessed by the two ministers of economy, trade, and industries of both countries. Thank you very much. Since the signing ceremony was held in Jerusalem, we held a forum to commemorate signing of the MOU in Osaka, Japan. Yeah, to impress Japanese industries and others with partnership with Israel. Taking advantage of this collaboration, we network with a Global Innovation Institute. We are running an acceleration program for startups from around the world. The name is K-GAP, K-HANA Global Acceleration Program Plus. Yes, acceleration program usually have a goal of raising fund. However, we focus on the POC or pilot testing with help of big enterprises. The duration of the program is 3 months. We launched the program in the 2020 and ran it 4 times so far. 48 startup companies from 8 countries will participate in the total. Of course, we welcome startups from Israel. They are second majority. Yes. K-GAP is does not limit sector. So Israel startups in the robotics, healthcare, security, and so on. They all of them have a very strong technology. They are innovative, and we are highly motivated. With them. We helped them to enter Japanese market with our mentors. We matched them with Japanese enterprises and helped to set B2B meetings. Next, I'd like to introduce our open innovation platform we have created to help Japanese companies solve their problem, challenges. The name is Cosign. HR will support Japanese companies and organizations in their POC or pilot testing to form open innovation teams with startups from around the world. Yes, 9 projects were created in 2000 in 2 years. Yes, K-HANA is a POC-friendly city, so not only startups but also local residents participate in these projects. again, Israel startups joined this project and made great contributions for the project. These example project like examination, the correlation between the brain and the agriculture work, or analyzing the emotion from vital data while driving. Yes. Finally, we'd like to inform you about the upcoming activities in the collaboration with the Israel Innovation Authority. IIA has an international pilot program that provides funding support to Israel startups who wish to pilot, scale up, and adapt their new technologies and the solutions to overseas companies. Their specific challenges. They make a joint project. The program for Japan is going to start this spring, and ATL, the Japanese partner organization. So the targeted sectors, smart city, mobility, healthcare, and agri-tech. Of course, agri-tech and food tech. If you want to join, please contact me anytime. Also, we will run the 2 batches for Career Plus accreditation program, this year. I think there are many startups today, so please join us. Thank you very much for your attention. That's all for my presentation.
Thank you, Makiko-san. So the next speaker is Mr. Dia Shridhi, CTO of Sompo Digital Tel Aviv. Mr. Dia spent extensive time in his career creating enterprise solutions for Ormat, one of the leading clean energy firms in the world, which, by the way, acquired by Japanese company Oryx for $627 million ownership stake. Now, he serves as CTO of Sompo's Digital Lab in Tel Aviv, working with startups and ecosystem players to bring Israeli innovative technology to Japan. Please, Dia.
Thank you, Shira. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in this event. And hello to you all. I would first like to share about our lab, about Sompo first, then about our lab and what we do. So some of you might know Sompo, especially those who live in Japan and those who are Japanese residents. Sompo is a global Japanese insurer active in 30 plus countries worldwide. The main subsidiaries are, of course, the headquarters in Japan, and the main subsidiaries in the USA, Brazil, Southeast Asia, China, Turkey, and in Israel, we have the Digital Lab, which is one of 3 labs around the world. The first was established in Tokyo, second in Silicon Valley. We were established in 2018. Sompo is a giant. It's a 1.4 billion net income company in 2019, 80K employees, and we operate in all of the insurance domains that you might know. Plus, we also have 2 interesting businesses, which is the healthcare business and the nursing care, and the cyber business was established 3 years ago. Of course, we also have the overseas insurance business, which includes everything outside of Japan. And you might ask, what does Sompo have to do? I mean, this is an insurance company. What does it have to do with digital and innovation? So according to our group CEO, and based on what he said, he wants people after this process, after kicking off this process of digital transformation and a new offering by Sompo, he wants people to think about Sompo, that Sompo used to be an insurance company, meaning we want to offer more value to our customers. other than insurance. As I said, we have established three digital labs. We were established in 2018. The labs are co-led by Narasaki-san and Nomata-san. And we have two main goals in this digital organization. The first is bringing internal innovation to our business units, to our lines of business and insurance. The second is creating new services, launching new services in new verticals. This is our team, is led by Mr. Yinon Dolev. We have a diversity of expertise in different domains, both, of course, in InsurTech, but also in mobility, cyber, digital health, and other business domains. Our main areas of interest, goes without saying, it's InsurTech, but not only. We also are interested in healthcare because it can give value to our customers on top of the life insurance, for example, that we provide in Japan. Smart cities, cyber, as I mentioned, we have a cyber business. The smart mobility, probably you know that auto insurance is the major revenue driver for insurance companies. That means we're very interested in smart mobility and mobility in general. But we are also now starting to look and work with AgTech companies because we want to bring value in that domain as well. And that's specifically, I'm in charge of developing that segment for the Digital Lab in Tel Aviv. So the way we work is that we learn from the business gaps and needs from the business units. After we have clarified those needs, we start the scouting process for innovative companies that could potentially answer or bridge that gap for our business unit. Then we enter into a proof of concept process that was followed after a successful POC is followed by a commercialization process, and then eventually, hopefully, launching that service in Japan. But we don't rely only on the business units. We also have a capability to launch our own initiatives, and that's the important thing, based on our understanding of the market and the needs. So we do expect needs to come from the business unit, but we can also launch services separately, and we also do that, especially in agriculture. So we do have a capability, of course, to we look for external innovation to enhance our existing business, launching new services or starting launching new services, meaning in the core insurance business, but also creating new digital ventures. I don't know if you know, but Sompo invested $500 million in a company called Palantir, which is total a software company. It's a data mining company, and also launched a joint venture with Palantir in Japan called Palantir Japan, with an investment of $75 million. So we're really becoming more and more data-driven company, investing in data in software companies. Also worth to mention that besides seeking collaboration with innovative companies for our areas of interest, we have the capability to invest in those partners or interesting startups that we see that we think that are very strategic or are strategic to Sompo. Some of these that I can mention, Bina AI, we invested in the company, we launched a service with Bina AI. Bina AI, they have signal processing, machine learning based on the smartphone camera that can detect different biomarkers only by taking the video of your face. We have launched this service with Himawari Life, the Sompo subsidiary for life insurance. We also have launched a commercial agreement with EasySend, the digital forms. This is like two examples of new service, which is Bina to our customers, and EasySend, which is a digital disruptor, which EasySend, what they provide is a way to transform many paperwork into digital forms. Of course, we have commercial agreements with cyber companies like Panorays and Sensai. We have launched a pilot with several cities with via Japan, and now we have engagements with downtime insurance companies like Parametrics. We have invested in Intuition Robotics and Nexar. This is only a partial list. We have also a very large ecosystem like Israel Living Lab, InsurTech Israel, the IDC, which is the Academy, and of course our partner law firm Pearl Coin. These are some of the capital investment partners that we have. Some of them probably may know: the Viola Ventures, Vertex, Ourcrowd, Teammate. This is the project I mentioned before, the service that we launched with powered by Bina AI. Bina AI basically provided us with an SDK, but we created the whole service that was launched in Japan, and we are using this actually now that it's being used in Japan with potential customers to detect early symptoms of COVID-19 for employees. And it is also used, it was launched with Himawari Life to give an indicator or an index for stress in order for people to have indication of their stress levels during the day. Another project that we launched in Japan, which aims to reduce accidents for the elderly people, is the ride-sharing service Via. We have launched this in several cities in Japan, and it supports and mainly supports the elderly population and to improve their quality of life and their mobility. This one I mentioned before, EasySend, the service or the technology that can enable us to get rid of all the paperwork. And when interacting, insurance companies have lots of interactions with the customers, especially when there's a claims process involved. So instead of using paperwork, which takes a lot of time to send and receive and may contain many errors along the way and takes a long time to process in general, we have started implementing EasySend starting with one of our business units, but now expanding to others, which makes the process much easier, better experience for the customer, less errors for the insurance processing process. And now we are currently, we have finished the POC with Parametrics, which is a monitoring system for downtime for cloud platforms. What they provide us is the monitoring system. We provide the coverage for the downtime for businesses that have EC shops. For example, if I'm a shop owner on Shopify and I suffered from a downtime, I get compensated on that downtime from Sompo based on the monitoring that was done by Parametrics. Another thing worth mentioning is that although crop insurance is not offered in Japan, it is offered by AgriSompo North America in the US. It's composed of two companies, mainly Armtech and Diversified Crop Insurance, making them one of the leading crop insurance providers in North America. They operate in other countries as well, like Brazil, Germany, Italy, and others. And basically giving a perspective of agriculture on our corporate perspective on agri-tech, and learning from experience. We have done 2 POCs. One of them is still ongoing. One is in Brazil and one in in Japan. And what we have learned is that, I mean, I've heard people mentioning that there are many challenges in the Japanese market for agriculture. But one of the things that I think I didn't hear is that, I mean, all the challenges are valid, of course, when we face them. And the other thing that I want to add is that the market is highly fragmented. I mean, most of the farmers are small farmers, and many of the technologies that we find in Israel and other places like Europe are mainly targeting the big farmers. So it's a big challenge when you want really to give an answer. It's like shooting mosquito with a shotgun, or trying to hunt a mosquito with a shotgun. But the main point is that you really have to be, you have to suit the solution to the needs of the Japanese market in order for you to enter the market, to make the entry to the market. That's one thing. The second thing is you really need to have a good partner in Japan. It's very hard from the cultural perspective to engage with stakeholders in Japan and reach them because of the cultural barriers and lack of knowledge in people basically don't speak the language, the foreign language, English, right? So you really have to have that good partner in order to assist you in this market penetration. We would like to think about ourselves as that partner that can help those startups that want to offer, that have some offering that can be suitable for the Japanese market. What we are now focusing on is more on the downstream technologies. We want to establish some kind of basically a marketplace that will connect growers and consumers. This is one thing. The other thing that we are now engaging in is leveraging our new partnership with Palantir to create what we call a real data platform for agri-tech, for agriculture, which will combine different data from the business itself, but also will include data from our clients, the farmers themselves, in order to give more value to our customers. Besides the insurance that we already provide, we want to offer more value based on our data and their data. We believe that we can achieve that. I think I've covered everything. I would like to thank you, and we are open to ideas on how to on ideas for the Japanese market, especially that I heard that mentioning the vertical farming, and we think it's a market that will grow significantly in Japan, based of course on the insight that you provided about the challenges. And the examples that we saw about the farm factory that we saw earlier. So we are open to ideas and suggestions on how we can collaborate in order to bring this to reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dia. It's amazing to hear and to know that Sompo is taking so much activity in Israel. I know that many major insurance companies are coming to Israel to invest and to do POC and to collaborate. But definitely Sompo is one of the most active insurance Japanese company in Israel. So next I would like to invite Mr. Dennis Ban, Manager Partner from Ourcrowd. Mr. Dennis Ban, a managing partner of Ourcrowd, one of Israel's largest venture capital funds and one of the world's leading wealth management platforms. As a serious entrepreneur turned serial investor, Dennis has founded a number of startups in the past decade, including co-founding and selling an HR company and co-founding Pocket Guide, a TechCrunch winner and one of the world's leading travel apps with millions of users. His investments and exits include Lemonade, Beyond Meat, Uber, and many more. Dennis, please.
Thank you for these kind words, Shira. Itsumo osewani natemasu. And that's how far my Japanese goes so far. Before I start, Shira, would you be so kind maybe to share that video, if you don't mind, if you can, and then I share my screen.
Is innovation linear? An entrepreneur has an idea. A venture capitalist picks it up. It's productized. And the market makes it a hit. Or not. But the world is no longer linear. Political systems toppled. Hierarchies collapsed. Industries reimagined. The world is being disrupted. The oldest human ventures modernized. Life-changing technologies are now at our fingertips. Everyday experiences are voyages in surpassing our limits. We are exploring the deepest corners of Earth, from the inside and out. Now, venture capital is being transformed, and it's happening beyond the lines. First came democratization, providing unprecedented access to investors and new sources of capital to entrepreneurs. But today, it's bigger, deeper. Entrepreneurs are sharing ideas. Corporate partners are offering global opportunities. Investors are providing capital and connections. This is a platform for interconnection. This is today's venture capital. This is the innovation revolution. This is Ourcrowd.
Thank you, Shira. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Okay. So again, it's really wonderful to be here. As you mentioned, as you've seen it, Ourcrowd is actually one of the leading and biggest venture capital funds in Israel. Short summary on who we are: 1.5 billion AUM, 200 portfolio companies, 22 funds, including our most well-known OC50 fund and OC Square fund, each with a 20% plus returns, and 8 unicorns. We had 40 exits in the last 8 years since our launch. The best IPO of 2020, Lemonade; best IPO 2019, Beyond Meat. And we know the Japanese market quite well. Some of the M&As include acquisitions by Canon, Rakuten, and we have investors or strategic partners, including Oryx, Honda, Denso, Toyota, Hitachi, and many more. I assume you recognize many of these brands. We have been very active in Japan, and specifically working with some of the leading corporations who would like to get access to venture capital, especially here in Israel. And we have 3 products. Basically, you can invest with funds, you can invest deal by deal, you can choose investing into specific companies, or we help some of the leading Japanese corporations with local scouting. So before I continue what we do here, I think we have to say a couple of words on what's happening, in this hopefully soon post-COVID world. I just wanted to share you some of my favorite quotes that I kind of collected in the last 12 months. This is from Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, who said, "We have seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months." Here is Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky, long before the IPO. He said, "I didn't know that I would make 20 years worth of decisions in just 10 weeks." Corey Barry, an incredible CEO of Best Buy, said the COVID-19 pandemic made me a better CEO. And I think there are a number of startups and entrepreneurs also in the call, not just investors. So I think the key word that I would pick, if I have to pick a word for innovation, is rethinking and rethinking again and again and again. And we saw that COVID-19 exponentially accelerated the tech use. We saw it with almost every single company. And whatever sector you're in, it's very likely you went through either what I call revolution or evolution. Doesn't matter what sector in this, your sector must have been affected. And by the way, this is not just a new trend. The COVID-19 definitely accelerated tech use, but there is something happened in 2018, which I think is like an irreversible trend. If you looked at, if we had this discussion 15 years ago, 2006, and you had looked at the 5 biggest companies, only one was tech. Yeah, you see the green. If it is even 10 years ago, if you look at it, only one was tech. Since 2018, the 5 biggest companies are all tech companies. And actually, I don't know if you can guess what is number 6 and number 7. Obviously, depends which day you ask, but it's actually Tencent and Alibaba. And if you look at the lifespan of the S&P 500 companies constantly decreasing from 60 years, the expected lifespan is now somewhere between 15 and 12 years. And the reason for it is actually that if you define competition of the past, it's the other big fish eats the smaller fish. But today, this disruptive innovation ecosystem, it totally turned everything upside down. And for that, we just can't solve the problems by using the same kind of thinking as one of the smartest human being ever said. Now, if you want to invest in into tech companies, this is, I think, is a very important slide. If you look at on the left side where you see Apple, Microsoft, the dark blue means represents the private value creation, and the light blue represents the public value creation. What does this mean? If you were a private investor and you invested in Apple, let's say if I was Steve Jobs and I would pitch for you first time from my garage, I would say, hey, invest in Apple, and you put in $10,000. You would be the first investor, and you sold it when the company went public, IPO, you would have made 600 times your money. That is $6 million on $10,000. But we know private investments is illiquid, it's high risk. So the public markets also had the same beautiful returns. So if you put in $10,000 in Apple when Apple went public, you also would have made 400 or 500 times your money. On Microsoft, 600. So, generally speaking, in the past, the returns, the value creation was equally distributed between private and public markets. What changed is that today, most of the returns, if you look at the right side of this graph, is that most of the returns are now happening on the private markets. And that is an incredible change. And this means that whether you are a sophisticated investor, a private investor, or a corporate investor, you have to think about that. That if you are still looking for the same alpha or returns, you need to be much more focusing on the private markets. And this just shows also how much of the how much is the private equity venture capital AUM has increased in the last couple of years. Venture capital also has been really one of the best, if not the best performing asset class. If you look at the last even 25 years or 20 years horizon, this is an interesting slide from Yale Endowment. So one of the most famous endowment investors in the world, as you can see, from 2014 towards until today, constantly increasing their allocation in venture capital. Israel, I'm sure this has been spoken quite a number of times, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But first of all, working with Japan, obviously, we have this is a mutual directional working collaboration. We have a lot to learn from Japan. Incredible amount. We haven't been able to build yet a Hitachi or a Toyota, but when it comes to these innovations and this disruption, Israel is leading the way globally. And this shows also that even despite the COVID-20, even last year, Israel is hitting records. I just saw the first month's numbers. We are 1.5 billion, approximately 1.5 billion was invested, which is another 30-40% growth just the beginning of the year. AI, which is probably the most important new kind of enabling technology. I don't even know what it's called. And it's Israel is number 3 in absolute numbers. We are very proud, Ourcrowd, that we are the most active AI investors in Israel. And just to say a couple of words about Ourcrowd. So we had 40 exits, and most often what we do is we sell our companies to some of the most well-known big corporations. We've been lucky to sell a couple of them already to Japanese. Last year we hit Lemonade, which was the best IPO. It's an insurtech company, and best IPO last year. Beyond Meat, which is in the food tech, was the best IPO in 2019. We were also lucky to hit it. So Japan-Israel ties, this may have been already spoken about, but Japan now accounts for 11% of all foreign investment in Israeli high tech, which is an incredible growth. And total Japanese investments are already over 8 billion. The most active investors have been Mitsubishi, Sumitomo, SBI, and we see that more and more of these big Japanese institution investors are entering Israel. We've been very, very honored that Oryx invested $60 million just at the end of last year. You may have seen the news. We have been honored to work with brands like Honda, Denso, Toyota, and we have we are involved with the Fresh Start, the Northern Food Tech Incubator, the Yeruham Incubator, which is also from farm to pharma. We actually a big partner in an ag-tech food tech incubator in New Zealand. We would love to do the same thing with Japan. And many of our companies, such as agri-tech companies and food tech companies, this is one of our sweet spots, and we love the space. So if we are happy to be involved more with the Japanese ecosystem. We have many funds offering the Ourcrowd 50 fund, for example, the Ourcrowd Continuity Fund, which are all open. We have been very blessed with the media, both globally and in Japan. So I just leave you with this, and if you would like to get these slides or want to learn more, feel free to send me an email. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dennis. I remember you from Tokyo in the seminar at Nikko. The picture you put.
That's right. Yes. That's exactly. You were there next to me.
Okay, so Ourcrowd, yes, indeed, is one of the popular VC among the Japanese companies. You can see Dennis in Tokyo here and there. Maybe you can meet in Tokyo in near future. Okay, so next I would like to invite Adas Koshilevich, IGA member, to moderate the next panel discussion. Implementation of urban farming in the private sector and the public sector. Adas, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Shira. I would like to invite Hiraishi-san and Lavi Rafael to this panel.
Hello, this is Iko. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi, Hiraishi-san. I will, is Lavi Rafael here. I will start with Hiraishi-san introduction, and then I will show a short introduction video of Lavi from the Association of Urban Farming in Israel. So Hiraishi-san is a serial entrepreneur and running seeds-focused funds. Hiraishi-san co-founded several startups, including Ourcrowd, which went public in 2004, and Interscope, which was successfully acquired by Yahoo Japan in 2007. In 2012, co-founded a Sunbridge Global Venture, a seed early stage focused VC, and its portfolio spread into the US and Europe in addition to Japan. Since July 2017, has reactivated his own company, Dream Vision, to build a global startup ecosystem in Tokyo. In February 2020, established InFarm Japan and has become the managing director. In 2021, accomplished the first launch in Asia at Kinokuniya International Aoyama store. Hiraishi-san, thank you very much for taking your time and joining us today. I know you're very busy. And now I would like to show a short video introducing Lavi Rafael, from the CEO and founder of the Association of Urban Farming in Israel.
Hi, my name is Lavi and I am the CEO of the Association for Urban Farming, a non-profit organization that aims to transform urban areas into self-sustaining food systems in order to make high-standard produce that is accessible and affordable to all. Today, there is a very low awareness among the general public of the real value of highly nutritious locally grown produce in terms of sustainability and health aspects. The perception is that the value of this kind of produce isn't higher than conventional low-standard imported produce, and therefore the public doesn't demand it. And when there is no demand, there is no reason for decision makers to develop strategy and supportive policies to change the food system. And that's the issue. And we are here to change that. We've been working on creating demand and promoting policy to sustain it by raising awareness among both the public and policymakers. We have developed urban farming centers, an economically sustainable platform dedicated to create, develop, and spread knowledge about sustainable urban farming practices to raise public awareness through community engagement. The model is scalable and can be replicated in populated areas worldwide, located in various locations such as public and private areas, as well as educational and community centers. In our centers, we educate the citizens, create new productive communities, instruct new urban farmers, and build long-lasting cooperation between several initiatives, mostly from the supply side. Through these activities, we assist the private and the public sector to achieve sustainable development goals and to develop resilient cities, particularly in marginalized communities that live in food desert and already suffering from food crisis. To sum up, we help to create the demand. We invite international organizations, activists, policymakers, and suppliers to collaborate with us to expand the market of high-standard produce that is accessible and affordable to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a very impressive video. Hiraishi-san, I would like to ask you to tell us more about InFarm, from idea to establishment and actually getting into the market as a supply chain of urban farming in Tokyo.
Yes, so could I show my slide
Sure.
a little bit?
Yes, just share your screen, please.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, if you can just.
So actually, this is the one of the restaurants where our farming units have been deployed in Berlin. And then this is the picture taken maybe 2 or 3 years ago with the 2 co-founders out of the 3 co-founders of Infam. And this is the picture of, as Hadas, you mentioned, the Kinokuniya International Aoyama store on the launch date. This was the first ever launch in Asia, not only in Tokyo. So the Infam is a hydroponics and a vertical LED vertical the farming and technology company, and we launched in Tokyo, as I mentioned, this year January 19th, and now we are running 3 stores in Tokyo and are planning to expand some more stores in the next the several months. So that is the short the introduction. But if you would like me to explain more, so please specify what sort of aspects or points you want me to explain.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we will start with a few questions. Then, if we have extra time, we will ask a more specific question about getting into the Japanese market and more about the customers' behavior. But if you can tell us more, please, about the urban farming ecosystem in Japan.
Okay, it's kind of how should I say, quite broader question. So it's a little difficult to explain the specifically, but in general, it depends on the geographies. I mean, cities or the areas. In Tokyo, the vegetables are grown and harvested by the LED and the hydroponics. Going to be the not unusual. So I would say going to be popular gradually. However, I would say coming back to the 3 or 4 years ago, even in Tokyo, vegetables by LED hydroponics were not really popular and not well conceived and accepted by the ordinary the people, consumers who shop at the supermarket. So lots of people still preferred the vegetables grown by the soil, land with the sunshine, because Japanese is kind of funny people, including me. So very tech savvy, but also very emotional. So the vegetables are grown by the natural lights, sunlight, and the soil. Seems like a kind of healthier, good for the people. I mean, as a food. So that's why at the time we didn't see lots of, for example, lettuces. Produced by the LED and hydroponics at the supermarkets, but gradually, so those kind of vegetables have been penetrated. And today, when you come to the supermarkets, so all the supermarkets, you can find lots of vegetables, especially lettuces, because lettuce are so popular, and roughly 30% of the vegetables sold in the supermarkets lettuces. So from the company's perspective, to focus on producing lettuces by the LED and hydroponics, very much reasonable. So we can see lots of lettuces by LED and hydroponics. That is the one thing I just wanted to share with the audience today.
Thank you very much. As an Israeli that lives in Japan, before arriving to Japan, I never actually looked where my vegetables come from. But what I learned from in Japan, from Japanese, actually in each product you buy, it's written where the vegetables come from. If it's been imported, if it's local, and even if it's local, which prefecture it comes from. and it seems that for Japanese consumers, it's very important to know that the vegetables, where they come from Japan. And something that I think it's a big difference from maybe Israel and Japan. And I would like to ask Rafael. I would like, nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I would like to actually say a few more words if you have to add on the video we watched, and if you can tell us about the urban farming ecosystem in Israel.
So in Israel, it's really tricky. We see that Israel, it's a kind of like a small city. Israel, it's one big, like one small city. There is a huge potential to have a direct farming over here and to see a platform or a model for urban farming practices. But eventually today, unfortunately, we're not seeing it. The demand for high standard produce that we're seeing and we hear today in this webinar. So the demand for this kind of product is not really high. Today, the demand for organic direct farming in Israel, it's something around 1 or 2% for the whole demand of produce over here in Israel. And so in one hand, we have a huge potential of showing urban farming model over here in Israel, because we have lots of farmers over here in Israel, and we have the technologies, and we have the high standard products. But unfortunately, most of the produce that we are growing over here in Israel, we export in it, and most of the food that the citizens of Israel are eating, it's actually imported. So these numbers are showing that we have the potential, but today we are not seeing it. And the people actually, and you mentioned it, Adas, that in Japan, the cultural demand is that people consider the value of local produce. Over here in Israel, the population don't really consider it as a value. People today, the customers are really focusing on the price. They don't really care if the produce been growing in the area of Israel in general. They don't really care about the quality of the produce. If it has all of the nutrients, if it used with the heavy pesticides, and the shelf life, for example. They don't really take it as a value. And in the other side, there is a huge potential of the market that just would expose them to these advantages and these values, they will change it really, really fast, their cultural demand. And we've seen it today by our work in our NGO. With a small exposure for the population, we see their how they change their habitats of how they change their consumption. And yeah, so there is a huge potential, and we are still now in the early beginning.
Thank you very much for your detailed answer. I think that we saw it yesterday when we talked about plant-based food and consumers in Israel. It changed quite fast, and I hope to see the same changes with urban farming foods and demands. I think what the InFarm is specialized about, and it's different from other companies, is that you can find the technology actually at the supermarket. So in that respect, I think that InFarm and the Association of Urban Farming expose urban farming to the customers, to the consumers directly. Hiraishi-san, can you please tell us more about how you actually promote urban farming to in-farm to consumers and how it's changed consumers' behavior? If you can see change in behavior.
If I understood your question properly, the way in-farm brought into the Japanese market is just show them how your vegetables are growing in front of the people at the supermarket and someday in the restaurant as well. So, for example, the companies running the LED hydroponics vertical farming, the business are not really rare. It's rather kind of popular, but most of them, except in-farm, do build the big the plant factory out of the big cities. Let's say 200 or 300 kilometers away from Tokyo or Osaka, from the big cities, because of the cost of the real estate, right? And then focus on the only lettuce, for example, and the package that deliver to the big cities and sell it them at the supermarket. That's it. But however, the people who buy those lettuces have no chance to understand what are the benefits by the vertical farming or LED hydroponics based agriculture, and also what are the issues of the conventional traditional soil based agriculture. For example, the roughly 30% of the vegetables are produced going to be wasted before the vegetables come to our table, right? And during those kind of waste, lots of energy has been consumed, and lots of CO2 has been generated. That is insane, kind of shame. So, but the lettuces, produced by LED hydroponics vertical farming, sold at the supermarket. Those products have no space, no chance to claim those kind of story, behind the scene to the customers, right? But in our case, so people can see how the vegetables are growing, as I mentioned, and then we have such a space, so we can, kind of put the posters, POP, hey, is our produce reduced the 95% water consumption compared to the conventional agriculture, 75% less fertilizer, and the other 90% less transportation, meaning less energy and less CO2 generation, and then no pesticides. So the people are understand, oh, this is a benefit by the vertical farming LED hydroponics. Then they how should I say, getting to kind of understand, and the not only from the rational aspect, but also from emotionally, they're going to like such a produce. So this is the strategy and also approach by in-farm. Otherwise, if we do the similar kind of the practice of the others do, so we cannot educate, we cannot tell the story to the people. So this is the approach in-farm does.
Thank you very much. I can't wait to see in-farm in Kyoto. And
someday soon.
Please do. And I want to ask Lavi. So I know that your NPO is huge advocate for urban farming, and not just in Israel, but actually it's an example for many other countries that want to do urban farming or actually educated for urban farming. One of your projects is actually bringing different sides of society together to the same rooftop. And I know that that brings more than just your salad into the table, but it's actually bringing a group of societies together. And I think it's beautiful. You want to elaborate it a little bit? Are you on mute? Can you please take off your mute?
Yes, thank you. So yes, so it's a great question because like Hirashi said, when the customers to change their behavior, it's really hard to do it by just show them a commercial, like an ad in the TV, or just write something on the package. They need to see it, they need to feel it, and they need to taste it to actually believe in it. So they will change their behavior and will buy this kind of a new product. It's a different product than what they used to. So to do this, we as an NGO, most of our work is by actually expose people by doing practices of agriculture. We working with many kind of people from the society. It could be young generation, it could be elders, it could be people with low income, refugees, people with special needs. There is a big connection between those kind of, we call them like the parents of the society to their diet. So when we're working with them, with agricultural practices, and we show them, and they actually grow their own food and they taste it, so then they can feel the value and they can start to believe in this kind of a new product. And then we actually do what we like, what our mission is, that we generate and we expand the demand for these kind of produce. And when there is a demand, it's much more easier to entrepreneurs like Hirashi to enter into this field and to start growing this kind of produce. So we build a demand, and then the supply chain start to actually make it. So it's always the chicken and the egg, and we working with the demand side, and it's actually working. We see that the people, refugees, that the parents used to eat mainly plant-based food. So today, the younger generation, their kids are actually not eating it, and it's a huge difference from their cultural diet to their kids. And we, by just educate them with farming practices, we change their diet in for example, 33% in 1 year of just an exposure. And it's a huge difference. And even if in Israel, we will expand the demand to just 1%, it will bring new entrepreneurs into the field. And that will will make the difference. And that's why we decided to work with the demand side.
Thank you very much. And the same note, I would love to see more social activism with urban farming in Japan and in Kyoto. And I think the next panel will elaborate it a bit longer. As InFarm is a supply chain and Urban Farming Association is a demand developer, we see that both of you working, both of educating society to a new future. I would like to finish this panel with one question, if you can answer it in few sentences, on how do you see the future for urban farming in Tokyo, in Japan, and in Israel? Let's start with Hirashi-san.
I think it's going to be the de facto standard, I would say, in less than 10 years.
Finger crossed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lavi?
I also believe in that it will be default, and the standards will change, and policies will be made to make just these kind of produce on the shelves, and the other produce won't be on the shelf. And we will see that not only from bottom up it will raise, but also from top down, the governments will try to also develop these values, and we will see a brighter future. We see the trend today, and it looks good.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to moderate this panel and know both of you, and I'm sure you too doing history with your activities. I would like to thank you a lot for participating in today's panel. I know you're very busy, and I will hope we will have a more deeper and longer panel in the near future and get Israeli urban farming and Japan urban farming closer together. Thank you very much for both of you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was my honor. Thank you. It's a very nice meeting in Lavi, even the online. Hopefully, I would like to meet in person someday.
Hopefully in
Thank
November.
you very much.
Hopefully in this year in November, we will have our expo. We will have a longer discussion, a physical longer discussion.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, thank you all for this interesting insight to the urban farming ecosystem, both in Israel and in Japan. I also have my small having in my garden, growing our vegetables. And yes, when I went to a local organic farmers shop in Israel, so they told us that some of the vegetables were imported, and I was really surprised to know that also in the organic shop in Israel they import the food and vegetables. So maybe the urban farming is the solution. Okay, so next I would like to invite Tomoko Nakashima Yosting, IJ Win member, to moderate the next panel discussion. The next panel will be only in Japanese, but we will upload the webinar at our YouTube channel next week with the translation. Tomoko-san, よろしくお願いします。
はい、シラさんありがとうございます。私の名前はヨスティング中村智子です。IJ ウィン創始者の一員で、司会を務めさせていただきます。これから日本の農業の未来について、日本のアーバンファーミングという課題のパネルディスカッションを始めさせていただきます。このパネルに参加していただきます方は次のご参加方です。NPO 法人アーバンファーマーズクラブの小倉隆様、東京農村シェアキッチン&オフィスの代表理事南部亮太様、村村ファームの代表村田康平様です。それではまず、NPO 法人アーバンファーマーズクラブ代表の小倉様、組織の説明紹介と小倉様自身のご紹介をお願いいたします。
はい、皆さんこんにちは。アーバンファーマーズクラブの、代表理事をしています小倉隆と申します。僕たちはですね、これ今僕たち、東京の都会のど真ん中象徴である渋谷エリアで、アーバンファーマーズクラブは2018年に発足しました。原宿、渋谷、恵比寿に5カ所の畑と田んぼを作っています。現在では600名ものメンバーが在籍しており、参加人数、延べ人数にすると5000名を超える活動に発展しています。さまざまな野菜、果物、お米、そういったものを作っています。では、なんでそんな都会のど真ん中の渋谷で農家をしようと思ったのか、そのことについてちょっと説明させてもらえればと思います。イスラエルの人はご存知かどうかわからないですが、 2011年に起きた、東日本大震災のことはどれぐらい知ってらっしゃるでしょうか。被災地のことはもしかしたら知っているかもしれません。ただ、その時この東京でどんなことが起きたかっていうとですね、もう物流のトラックが、止まったことで、スーパー、コンビニエンスストア、ドラッグストア、あらゆる食べ物とか飲み物が溢れていた東京が、一切食料が消えました。その時に僕はすごく感じたことは、人間は誰でも生きていくのに必ずしなければいけないことは当然何か食べることです。でもその情報もお金も人も何もかもが溢れていると思っていた東京で一番大切なもの、それは生きるために必要な食べるものを作ってないんだっていうことでした。じゃあ翻って日本の状況を今ちょっと簡単にご説明しますと、この左側がですね、日本の人口約1億3000万人で、東京の人口は1400万人と言われています。つまり日本人の10人に1人が東京に住んでいる。もっと広く考えると、日本中の都市、ほとんど7割から8割の人間が都市で暮らしています。そして右側、これは農村という、農家さんたちの、人口を表しています。これちょっとデータが古いんですけど、2015年に農家さんは180万人です。じゃあその30年前、1985年には何人いたかというと542万人でした。このたった30年間で300万人ぐらいもの農家さんが辞めてしまったという現状、これどういうことかというと、その下の平均年齢 66.7 歳、つまり農家さん70歳を超えると、もう体がきついからといって畑や田んぼを手放してしまう、あるいは辞めてしまう。でもしその若い人たちが入ってくれば農家さんの人口っていうのは変わらないんですけれども、もう若い人たちが全然農家さんになってくるっていうその新陳代謝がないんですね。ということは、このまま都市の人口が増え続けていけばいくほど農の担い手がいなくなってしまう。つまり僕たちの食べ物っていうのは誰も育ってくれなくなってしまうんじゃないか。そう思ったことから、だとしたら自分たちが食べたい野菜とかは自分たちで育てて自分たちで食べたらいいじゃないかという思いでアーバンファーマーズクラブを立ち上げました。これちょっと今日お時間少ないので簡単に説明しますけど、アーバンファーマーズクラブは地域活性と食育、環境対策、食料自給という観点から NPO 法人を立ち上げました。皆さん今日いろいろなお話を伺っていてすごく勉強になってるんですけれども、僕たちは生産者でもないですし、農ビジネスとしても捉えていません。僕たちは市民活動としてアーバンファーミングというものを実装することによって社会、未来がより良くなるように、そういった活動をしていけたらと思っています。あと簡単にこの世界中で問題になっている、コロナなんですけど、コロナが始まったことで食の格差っていうことがどんどん広がってきているので、昨年度から僕たちメンバーで育てた野菜をフードバンクさんに寄付をするような活動も行っています。以上です。
ありがとうございました。それでは次は、東京農村のシェアキッチン&オフィスの代表理事南部亮太さんお願いします。
はい、こんにちは。聞こえてます？
はい、聞こえてます。
はい、一般社団法人村代表理事の南部亮太と申します。よろしくお願いします。普段僕はですね、グラフィックデザイナーとして活動しているんですが、農業デザイナーという肩書きで今、働いてます。それ農業デザイナーってどういうことかっていうと、農家さんのロゴマークとかパッケージとかいろいろ作成しているんですが、その中で、一番最初に出会った国分寺という東京の国分寺という場所があるんですが、そこの農家さんが、畑が国道が通るというところで大開地として赤坂見附という東京のど真ん中で、東京の農と食を発信するビルとして、東京農村というビルを建てました。で、私はそこの、デザインだったりとかいろいろ企画を担当しております。で、そこではですね、4階と5階がシェアオフィスとシェアキッチンになっているんですけども、ここのシェアオフィスでは、農とか食に関わる方が、働いております。例えば料理家さんだったりとか、農関係のベンチャー企業とか、いろんな方がここで働いています。で、5階にはシェアキッチンになってまして、ここで料理教室を開いたりとか、あと最近だと、ちょっとなかなか大きなイベントができないので、食関係の撮影とかやっております。で、そこで私たちが何をやっているかというとですね、 毎月1回東京農サロンというものをやってます。これどういうことかっていうと、東京にはですね、約1万人の販売農家さんいらっしゃるんですが、その農家さんを中心に、どんな活動をしているか、またどんな、思いで今まで代々農業をやってるかっていうのを、農業関係だったりとか、あと飲食関係とか流通関係の方たちを一堂に介してですね、交流会をするイベントをやっております。で、こんな形で、5階で、飲み会とかいろいろやりながら交流を深めてるんですが、東京の農業といってもちっちゃい場所ではあるんですが、点と点が結びつくような、ここを中心にいろんな、活動だったりとかプロジェクトが生み出すようにサポートしております。で、さらにですね、私自身、ここからちょっとまた、東京農村とは違う話になるんですが、私自身も実は東京の国分寺という場所に住んでるんですね。そこは新宿から約電車で30分ぐらいのところで、こういった形でですね、畑が近くにあるんですけど、暮らしも近くにあるんですね。これ分かるかな？家が隣にあったりとかして、これ本当に珍しい場所ではあるんですが、そこでですね、国分寺市と一緒に国ベジというプロジェクトを立ち上げました。これどういうことかというと、その国分寺の農家さんを作った野菜を国分寺の飲食店さんに作ってもらうということで、最初約、10店舗ぐらいの、飲食店が協力していただいたんですが、そこから約ですね、5年経って今、国分寺の野菜を使っている、お店がですね、100店舗以上に広がってます。で、その中で僕たちがやっているのは、配達もやってます。朝ですね、農家さんの野菜を集荷して、で、夕方まで飲食店さんに届けるというような活動を5年間続けてきた結果、そのような活動が広がったという感じです。で、これは、国ベジのマルシェなんですが、こういったなんていうかな、野菜が分かりやすいような形で、建築家さんと一緒に野菜棚を作って、野菜が中心なマルシェを開催したりとか、本当に食がですね、東京にある食が日常につながるような活動を配達やデザインやそういうマルシェを通して今行っております。こうした輪が東京全体に広がっていくような活動を今後もやっていければと思っております。はい、ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。ナウさん。東京農村、そしたら生産者、また業界の人と消費者を結ぶ、組織ということでしょうか。
そうですね。はい、そうです。
わかりました。ありがとうございました。それでは、村々ファーム代表の村田康平さん。
皆さん、はじめまして。今回はありがとうございます。村田康平と言います。2枚目のスライドにお願いしていいですか。これが今使っている農園の写真ですね。兵庫県高砂市の出身で、今、淡路島に在住です。アメリカ、オーストラリア、大阪でなどの、レストランでだいたい6年ぐらい働いてたんですけど、広島県にあるレストラン中心に野菜を卸している鍛冶屋農園で研修を受けたのがきっかけで、農家に転校しました。で、去年の10月なので、約半年前なんですけど、淡路島に移住して本格的に人となりを感じるサラダをコンセプトに村々ファームを起業しました。で今はですね、ハーブを混ぜたベビーリーフが、中心の商品なんですけど、あとエディブルフラワーとかを育てていて、スーパーにはないということで、直販サイトですごい、売れている状態で、料理ブロガーの方に紹介されたことがきっかけとなって、本当に一日中携帯が鳴りやまない状態が続いています。スライド送っていただけますか。はい。こんな感じで、スライドどんどん送っていただけたら、こんな感じで毎日コメントが、届いていて、本当に多い日は何十件って、コメントが届いたりとかするんですけど、もちろん最初始めた時はそんなことは全然なくて、本当に1日1件とか2件とかでどうしようかなって思ってて、で、ちょこちょこ売れ始めた時に、1日、5、6件とかいただけるようになった時に、すいません、ごちそうベビーリーフっていう記事があるんですけど、料理ブロガーの方が、記事を上げてくださって、で、そこから本当に なんか農作業してると、1時間にもうポンポンポンポンポンポンってずっと携帯が鳴りやまない時があって、で、なんだろうなと思ってたらこの記事だったんですね。で、そこから本当にありがたいことに注文をどんどんいただいています。で、それがまあ今の状況で、次のスライドから、農園と商品のがどんな感じなのか写真を、はい、どんどん送っていってもらえたら、そうですね、こんな感じで、葉物、結構珍しいものとか育ててて、この辺は水菜とか、ルッコラ、春菊とか、からし菜ですかね、その下は。で、ケールがあったり、オラク、レッドゼイユっていうような、ちょっと変わった野菜とかを混ぜて、で、袋に入れて、もう袋から出したらすぐ食べれるようにドレッシングなどつけて出してるので、本当に届いたら1分ほどでサラダが作れるように梱包して、で、収穫から1時間以内に届くっていうのもすごく魅力みたいで、すごい鮮度がいい状態で届くので、それも、すごい喜んでいただいてます。あと、今この写真が、マイクロっていうサイズの、葉物野菜になります。だいたい種まいてから10日ぐらいで収穫するんですけど、すごい栄養価と風味が強いので、これもスーパーになかなかない商品ということで、支持されてます。で、最後にお花の商品ですね。下の方の、その下、お願いします。こうやってエディブルフラワーとかを、すごすごフラワーボックスって言って、必ず、これ買ってくれた人が、家族の食卓に並べたときにすげーって言ってもらえるっていうことをコンセプトに作ったすごすごフラワーボックスで、下にベビーリーフが入ってて、サラダが簡単に作れるようになっています。これもすごい、いろいろ試行錯誤して、で、どうやったら、こう田舎にいながら都会の人たちに、喜んでもらえるかなってことをどんどん考えてやってきた農家、小さな農家っていう感じです。はい、今日はよろしくお願いします。
村田さん、どうもありがとうございます。それではこれから皆さんにちょっと質問して一緒に話をしていきたいと思うんですけれども、まず質問1番、それぞれ参加者とかあるいは消費者を集めるためにどういう努力をされていらっしゃいますか？小倉さん、お願いします。
僕たちは本当に SNS が主な活動ですかね。USC アーバンファーマーズクラブっていう活動を、SNS を通じて発信をして、でそれを見た市民の方々がまたそこで、僕たちの活動にジョインしてもらう。で、活動にジョインしてくれた方々また口コミでどんどん人を広げてくれるっていうのが感じでしょうか。
で、来てくれた参加者を続けて来てもらうためにはどういう努力されていらっしゃいますか？
渋谷っていうところで実際に土をバンと盛り込んで本物の畑を作ってるので、その都会のど真ん中でその農体験ができるっていうことはちょっと他ではできないことなので、その驚きとか喜びとか感動みたいなものがまずそもそもすごく大きなモチベーションになってくれてるんだろうなと思っています。ですので僕らは自分たちがこういうことがあったらいいよね、やってみたいよねって、普通だったら都会ではそれ無理だよっていうようなことをどんどんできないからちょっとやってみようよっていうので始めていることが一番価値になっているのかなと思います。例えば今年から始めるのは恵比寿ではブドウを育ててワイン作りを始めるし、渋谷ではホップを育てて渋谷ビールを作ることにもなってるし、なんかそういった普通だったら里山とか農村に行かなきゃできないことを都会でやるっていうことのチャレンジみたいなことにみんながすごく共感してくれてるんだと思いますね。
わかりました。すごくいい体験ですね。それでは南部さん、南部さんの方では東京農村さんはどのようにして消費者を開拓して、またそれを維持して続けて消費してもらうためにはどういう努力されてますか？
はい、そうですね。僕らも SNS が中心になるんですが、消費者というより僕らはどちらかというとその農家さんとかもともとこの流通に関係する方とかその飲食業に関わる方たちとのつながりを大切にしていて、もともと知り合いの方から、その方をまた紹介していただいたりとか、友達同士横のつながりをどんどん作っていくような形で、 なるべくコアな方たちをメインにターゲットとしております。
わかりました。ありがとうございます。それでは村田さんの方はいかがでしょうか。
そうですね。僕の場合は、今コロナの状況もあって、農家さんから、直接、野菜を買いたいという人すごく増えてるので、本当に商品を良くしていく。で、コメントとか口コミとかを見ていって、それをもうどんどん小さなことを改善していくっていうことに集中していて、それの一つが、収穫してから最短で24時間で届くとか、あとは種類を増やしたりとか、あと自分が今まで料理をしてきて、で美味しいものを追求した結果、今こういう状況になってるっていうこととかも手紙にして届けたりとか、コミュニケーションも工夫するようにしてますね。
大切ですね。それではですね、続けて村田さんお願いいたしますけれども、村田さん淡路島にいらっしゃいますけれども、どのように販売ルートまた分配してどの地域に消費者はいらっしゃるんでしょうか。
ですね、日本の今、僕が使っているサイトで食べ直っていうのとポケットマルシェっていうその農家直販のサイトがあるんですけど、そこに掲載して消費者の方結構やっぱり都心の人が多いですね。印象としては東京、大阪が多いんですけど、それでもやっぱり北海道からもありますし、九州からもあるし、やっぱ新しいものだったり、質の高いものを皆さん求めてるんだろうなっていうようなイメージですね。
で、コロナになっての影響とかいかがですか？
いや、それがそうですね。ポケットマルシェっていう会社の会員数自体が、この1年で6倍とかに増えているので、もうプラットフォームの会社の会員数がもう伸びてるんで、それに従ってどんどん、今、地方の農家はちょっとバブルみたいになってるかもしれないですね。
むしろコロナになって需要がオンラインを通しての注文なので需要が増えているということですか？
そうですね。それは顕著ですね。
わかりました。それでは東京の南部さん、コロナになって村田さんの場合はすごくオンライン販売なのですごく成長して拡販する販売も増えてるみたいですけども、東京農村さんの方ではどうでしょうか？
そうですね、僕らのところはやっぱり逆に1階から3階までが東京野菜を使った飲食店さんだったりするんですけども、そこがかなり大打撃を受けていて、東京の中心地である、東京農村なんですけど、やっぱり人通りが少なかったりもしますし、今だと夜の8時までしか営業できなかったりもするので、
そうですよね。
この飲食店関係は相当打撃を受けています。で、僕らもですね、今までは対面のイベントを大切にしていて、直接会って話すとか、いろんな交流を中心にしていたんですが、それもできなくなって、今はもうオンライン中心にして、少人数で集まって、あとはこういうふうに Zoom のイベントとして、横のつながりを作っていってるっていうのがあるので、僕らから、農家さんがね、今村田さんのお話ありましたけど潤ってるのはすごくいいなとは思うんですが、もっと、対面の、なんか機会だったりとかそういうつながりというか交流がもっと増えるといいなとは思いますね。
そうですよね。実際にみんな早くその状態に戻りたいと思うと思うんですけど、もうコロナでオンラインの強さというかそれ残っていくと思うんですよね。これからの課題として、だから両方合わせてやっていくのがこれからの将来の課題と思うんですけども。
僕らも、これまではコアな方、もう本当に農業に携わってるとか、そういう職業に携わってるっていう人をターゲットにしてたんですが、オンラインにすることでもっとライトな層というか、一般の人たちにもこういった、僕らの魅力を発信していこうというふうな方向性にはしております。
そうですよね。ありがとうございます。小倉さんはどうですか？コロナになってどんな感じですか、皆さん。
メンバーはとにかくもうすごく増えました。例えば報道でもあるようにホームセンターに行く人がすごく増えたりとか、やっぱり家にいる時間が増えたことによって、土に触れたいとか食も、自分で食べ物を育てたいっていう意識の人たちがすごく増えたんだと思います。この1年間で 1.5 倍ぐらいすごいうなぎ登りにやっぱりメンバー増えているので、そういったみんなの本質的なニーズはすごく感じます。あとプラスでやっぱりその飲食っていうのは、外で今までっていうのはレストランっていうのは空間とかそのサービスとかを含めて食べるっていう行為だったと思うんですけど、やっぱり自宅で食べるっていうことになると、より例えば食材に向き合うとか、その食べることの本質みたいなことを皆さんが向き合ってるのかなと。そんな中で例えばじゃあ自分でも本当に農薬を使わない野菜を作ることができるんだったら自分でもやってみたいっていうような、そういった人たちがすごく増えてるなっていうのは肌で感じています。
わかりました。ありがとうございます。もっといろいろたくさんお話聞きたいんですけども、私たちの予定の時間がもうなくなってしまいましたので、これからまたもしよければご参加続けて協力されてもいいと思いますし、11月、今年の11月あるいは来年の初めに日本で展示会をしますので、続けて連絡し合いたいと思います。今日はご参加ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
失礼します。
シ
ーラさん。
はい。皆様ありがとうございました。とても興味深い、内容でした。私の実家も一応農家で、日本の、千葉のど田舎で、野菜農業をやっていました、家で。イスラエルでもやっぱりこのコロナの時期でたくさんの人たちが、家の小さい庭だとか、あとは屋根、ベランダで自分の野菜とか食料品を作っていくことをする人が増えています。はい。So the next speaker is Mr. Arya Kutz, partner of Nir Kutz Architects and chairman of Israel-Japan Friendship Association. Mr. Arya is an architect and urban planner since graduating in 1977. Between 1981 and 1984, he was in Japan doing his master's in the Tokyo Institute of Technology. Arya is a lecturer in the East Asia Studies in Tel Aviv University. Since 2007, he is chairman of the Israel-Japan Friendship Society. Please, Arya.
Hello, thank you very much for the introduction and for inviting me to this exciting webinar. I would like to take you to a very quick tour through architecture as a potential platform for urban agriculture. We are talking about green roofs and green walls as one of the means towards a more sustainable environment. Tokyo government has discovered that long time ago and promoting greenery in and on and around buildings. And I was very lucky in my private practice to participate in some of the projects in Israel. Here you see a municipal underground parking lot in the center of Tel Aviv with its upper roof as a preparation to this beautiful garden. It's all on the rooftop of a building. And you see it here already quite a few years after inauguration with the trees and the greenery growing up and green and creating really a lush environment, and it's all on a roof. My great teacher to all of this is also my partner. Paul Friedberg is an American landscape architect. He did this project in Manhattan. You can see here the library rooftop of Fordham University before Paul was called in, and this is after. It's a beautiful green roof garden at the center of Manhattan. And he's been a teacher and a guide to our projects back to Israel. This was our first project on a small rooftop in a pharmaceutical company. And this is what we turned this roof into. Again, on a rooftop. We were also lucky to be mentioned in the greenroofs.com, an international site. Another project in Jaffa, Andromeda Hill, again on a rooftop. Here, the municipality of Jerusalem called us to deal with a rooftop of a high school. And this is a photo just before. And then all students were participating and suggesting ideas after they went through a course about rooftop gardens. And we took some of the sketches and turned it into a plan. And then with the help of the carpentry class, most of the construction was done by the students. And finally, it turned into a roof. Part of it is agriculture with herbs and green leaves, and part of it is just a green garden for the children and the community in Jerusalem. And the last project I want to show you is here in Tel Aviv. The first one was a roof. This one is a big green wall on an office building in Tel Aviv, a checkpoint software company, firewall, the famous firewall. This is their headquarters. And we were dealing with a huge eastwards facing facade. And in the east, we have a very low sun, very strong in Israel. And we suggested to tackle this with a big green wall, kind of a double skin, creating a protective layer for the inner volume of the offices. And here there is a space where the gardener can walk and grow and take care of the vegetables. So we have the inner space, we have a platform for the gardener to walk, and the outer layer as the growing area. We also used the water from the air condition, the condensation water from the air conditions. Office buildings, especially in Israel's coastline, where we have a lot of water coming down from the air condition. We use this water for the irrigation system, and very, very little amount of system water go, if at all, into this system, which is again protecting the building from the eastern strong sun and from the southern sun, and creating this green wall for the environment and sustainability of the building and the city. Again, this lecture of mine doesn't show any agriculture per se, but I hope that you can see the potential and you can understand the building as a platform that can handle urban agriculture, community agriculture on top of the buildings, on the facade of the buildings. And here are some of the projects that we are dealing these days, coming soon in Tel Aviv, in Ramat Gan, and Petach Tikva. And again, this is the checkpoint building. As I said, we are looking forward to also turn this potential of the building into an active urban agriculture sites for the community and for the city. That's all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arya, for insight to another perspective of urban farming and how it combines in society. Next, I would like to invite Sharon Almog, IG Win member, and Mr. Lior Ben Yaakov, Chief Innovative Innovation Officer, Head of Partnership and Ventures at Mitsubishi Corporation, to talk about the approach of business companies to the Israeli ecosystem. Hi, Lior.
Hi everyone. Hi, Sharon.
Hi. Yes, we can hear you. Our guest on this discussion is Mr. Lior Ben Yaakov, Chief Innovation Officer, Head of Partnerships and Ventures of Mitsubishi Corporation Tel Aviv office. Lior joined Mitsubishi Corporation early in 2020 with over a decade of experience in international business development, strategy, and investment at both global corporates and startups. We will discuss about the approach of Japanese companies to the Israeli ecosystem. I'm Sharon Almog, Israeli living in Japan and an IJ-WIN member. Lior, thank you for joining us on this discussion.
Thank you.
Please introduce us to Mitsubishi Corporation and tell us what are the Japanese Sogososha and the Keiretsu.
First of all, thank you very much for hosting me. I hope I won't be repeating any information that you've heard already during the webinar, because I've seen some esteemed guests such as Daniel Kolbar and my friend Dia Sharidi at Sompo. And I myself am still learning about this big world of the Japanese business and the Sogososha companies, Keiretsus. Mitsubishi Corporation is one of the largest general trading companies, it's called, Sogososha. These are entities that exist for a very long time. They go back to the 19th century when Japan was going through its westernization with various evolutions. Later on also during the World War, but still going through various changes, still exist. It's hard to call these companies, it's hard to call them a holding company. These are conglomerates. Sometimes I refer to them as sort of families with the various cores. The Keiretsu is really a family of group companies. Usually they would have 3 cores. Mitsubishi, it is that way, where the trading company, Mitsubishi Corporation, which I represent, is one of the cores. The banking and financial side would be another core. Again, another big group of companies. And in our case, also Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, which are part of the family, but also distant family. And it's sometimes interesting to distinguish between them. We at Mitsubishi Corporation, we have activities in 10 different business units, almost, I guess, from pasta to rockets, 1,400 daughter companies across the globe, around 80,000 employees. And here in Israel, we're a very small operation. And I think, well, that will be probably our next topic that is mandated on kind of getting to know and connecting with the Israeli ecosystem. Mm-hmm. It's in very, very brief, unfortunately.
Can you please tell us about the past and current approach of Japanese conglomerates to the Israeli market, and what does the future hold?
Sure. This is something I always say. I think that the Japanese business world kind of discovered Israel relatively late. You know, the large international technology companies such as Intel and others, you know, figure out that there's something here and is interesting here in Israel years ago, decades ago. I'd say 30 years ago even. Other international conglomerates that you wouldn't identify as technology companies have done so also relatively long ago. And then came for the Japanese conglomerates, for these international global Japanese companies, Israel was always, I guess, you know, just another area in the Middle East. It was difficult to distinguish between, you know, they're close on the map, Middle East, Israel. As you know, the geographic proximity doesn't always mean that there is a cultural or business proximity. Now it's starting to be that way, but for years it hasn't. But finally, I think in the last several years, perhaps the trigger was in 2015 when Mr. Abe visited. Suddenly these companies have figured out that something is happening here in Israel. One, Israel is no longer tiny, but just small in terms of a market. And of course, the positive reputation as a startup nation that has a lot of innovation to offer has become very interesting for these companies. And we see more and more of them building activities here in Israel. And this is also what caused also my company, Mitsubishi Corporation, to build its own, what we call a liaison office, which is one of the ways that these companies operate, to connect to the ecosystem, to identify opportunities, and to try to take them into the world of the corporation, which is quite large. And you know, Japan is the third largest economy, and it is in need of innovation. And these general trading companies also are competition. Mitsui, Itochu, Marubeni, Sumitomo, all of them have activities here in Israel and are looking for similar opportunities. So it's very exciting for the Israeli entrepreneur right now to have this additional, you know, you don't have to look only at the United States and maybe at Europe anymore.
We are very attractive nowadays. It feels good.
Yeah, I guess. We have a lot of things to fix, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, a lot. Why is it a good idea for entrepreneurs and other ecosystem stakeholders to work with the Mitsubishi Corporation?
Sure. Let me just complete my my previous answer. I think kind of what is it going to happen towards the future. So we see several levels of evolution, I call it, of operations for the Sogososhas in Israel, starting from just a liaison office such as ours, although we are very active. Other companies with more business development activities and investment that is coming from various units. And another step in the evolution is actual CVCs, corporate venture capital units, that these companies are starting. Some of the other Sogososhas have already done it, and I believe we at Mitsubishi will also evolve that way similarly. Our plans were slowed down a little bit in the last year, but I think we'll get there as well. So that's very exciting, and it kind of leads into the next into your next question. That is one of the opportunities for a local entrepreneur to be in touch with us. You know, we're talking about global companies with presence all over, industrial presence and trading presence, both in Southeast Asia and Japan, of course, but on basically on every different continent and covering various industries. It's not always easy to connect with these kind of companies. If I'm a small entrepreneur, speak to where do I go, which contact do I use, and there are all kinds of organizations that are there to assist. Israel Export Institute, the attaches at the embassies, et cetera, et cetera. But it also makes a lot of sense to have a discussion with an office such as ours. This is exactly our mandate. We want to make the right kind of connection between an opportunity in Israel, whether it's a startup or another kind of stakeholder, funds or other entities, businesses, and connect it to the right business within Mitsubishi Corporation, and then facilitate that until it leads to some kind of collaboration, whether it's technical, commercial, and also potentially an investment. And that is, you know, getting some level of partnership with an entrepreneur. And I used to be part of a startup. Being able to say to your investors and to your stakeholders, you know, I'm working with Mitsubishi Corporation or some of the others, is very valuable, both for fundraising, but also for generally for the health of the business. and it makes a lot of sense. So on the one hand, these are processes that can take time. I'm struggling with that myself, as you know. I would say I'm new to the organization, but the advantage is that while it does take time, once something sticks,
it's a long-term relationship.
Exactly. It takes long, but then the commitment is more long-term.
Stronger, yeah.
So it makes sense to manage this relationship and be patient. Not always will it work, of course. When it does, it can be highly beneficial, I think, for that entrepreneur. And that is exactly why myself and my colleagues are here. We're really, sometimes I feel like I'm another arm of the Israeli Export Institute, because I'm really here to help entrepreneurs make those connections.
Can a relatively small, medium-sized business can communicate with you directly? Or if I'm a small business, I need to get through another channel?
So there are various channels. I can't say that the only channel into the corporation, into MC, would be through us at the Tel Aviv office. That wouldn't be accurate, but we would definitely be an efficient way to create that channel. And you're right, these businesses don't necessarily have to be labeled as a startup. We would basically, the process is that we speak to many stakeholders in the ecosystem, and the ones that are that I find interesting, I will try and connect them to relevant entities within Mitsubishi Corporation, whether it's with the various divisions, there are 10 of those, or potentially with relevant subsidiary companies that are also part of the group. I have to get their interest in continuing such a dialogue with the relevant opportunities and help facilitate that. Not always will it happen, but when it does, then there will be a direct connection between the business that wants to, you know, pilot a technology or purchase it, consider an investment, etc. And then the discussion will be directly with them, but it will be facilitated by us here in Tel Aviv.
Okay, very, very interesting. Do you want to add anything else?
Yes, I know that the webinar was focusing on ag tech and food tech mostly.
Yeah.
Also,
I was gonna ask you. Do you want to share some collaborations with ag techs and food techs?
We won't go into specifics. We're also kind of our operations. My background is really in these worlds as well, not as an agronomist or as a food technologist, but on the business side. So this is very interesting for us. And if I didn't mention this earlier, our focus areas here in Tel Aviv, as we try and map what we call the Israeli ecosystems, indeed, we're looking at ag and food tech. We're also looking at other innovation sectors, such as Industry 4.0, which is modernizing how industry works and everything that revolves around what we call the fourth industrial revolution. We also, of course, look at mobility and auto, because that's also part of our corporation as focus areas. And then again, we'll also be kind of ad hoc scouting for technologies per request that we might get through various channels, kind of from our colleagues globally. So basically, we work both on a push approach, but also sometimes as a pool. I would encourage any entrepreneurs that are listening today to try and reach out and contact us. I would also recommend going online. You can check out the global website of the corporation, including a brochure, kind of shows all the various businesses that are part of the company. and technologies that sound like they could be relevant for any of the business units are technologies that I want to hear about. It's always good to have this relationship, and nothing has to be formal. This is another kind of a tip going back to what we said earlier. It's very good for us to be aware of your existence, you the Israeli entrepreneur, and who knows when the right kind of dots can be connected and something can be pushed forward into a more robust collaboration. Investments do happen and partnerships do happen in the various spaces, and we're running several pilots and ongoing discussions. And I very much hope that first of all, as the COVID situation unfolds and going forward, again, as we're a new operation, then more and more activity and more traction in the local ecosystem. We'll see more of that traction, more investments, and we'll also expedite processes, I think, as well. So a lot of so the future looks bright, I think, for both sides. I think both the Japanese businesses and the local ecosystem.
Great, lots of hope and opportunities are waiting for all of us. It was an eye-opening discussion, Lior. Your insights were very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing many more collaborations of Mitsubishi Corporation, the Israeli market, and lots of other collaborations as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. Very interesting.
Thank you, Lior, and thank you, Sharon. Today, there are around 90 Japanese companies that are active in Israel. And actually, Mitsubishi is one of the first conglomerate that has established a presence in Israel. And today they are very also active in investments and other activities, other collaboration in Israel. So before we play the AgriTech startup pitches, I would like to invite Ito-sama for present the dog company startup. Ito-sama, よろしくお願いします。
はい、よろしくお願いします。はい、画面と音声の方届いておりますでしょうか。
はい。
はい、ありがとうございます。では、こちらからスライドを共有させていただいて、プレゼンを開始させていただきます。スライドはどのような形で表示されてますでしょうか。プレゼンテーションウィンドウじゃなくて、普通のスライドになってますかね。はい。では、ごめんなさい。最後のちょっと。最初に戻ります。はい、すみません。失礼しました。株式会社道具の伊藤と申します。本日は弊社の事業、特に、先日発表いたしました農業用のクローラーロボットメカロンという、アイテムを中心にご紹介をさせていただきます。どうぞよろしくお願いします。私ども、社名を道具と申します。日本語でツールを意味する道具とかけて、道具として役に立つ移動ロボットで人々を笑顔にという企業理念のもと、事業を行っております。代表の大島をはじめ、筑波大学出身者が多く在籍しておりまして、筑波大学発ベンチャーとして認定を受けています。当社は汎用移動ロボットの専業メーカーとして、このスライドに記載のようなさまざまな分野で活 活用されるロボットを手掛けています。物を運ぶという用途としては工場とか倉庫とかが主な市場なんですけれども、他にもサービスの現場だったりとか、巡回とかですね、あと人の移動補助、それから電車とか飛行機などの巨大整備場、さらに工場や建築の作業現場、あとは後半でお話をさせていただきます農業といった現場にも活用が広がっています。今見ていただいているスライドのものが弊社の主力製品サウザー E シリーズという名前の運搬ロボットです。いろいろな特徴を網羅的に並べておりますけれども、一番喜んでいただいている特徴というのがすぐに誰でもどこでも使えるという簡単に使えるという点です。電源のボタンを押すとすぐに起動をしてスタートボタンを押すと動き始めるというとてもシンプルな動きになります。でロボット側にレーザーセンサーが搭載されてまして、それで周囲を見ているので、太陽の下だったりとか、暗闇でも正確に走ります。それから段差とか斜面ですね、それから雨の時にも使えるので、工場の建屋から建屋、屋外で搬送する用途などにも使っていただいています。それからもう一つ大きな特徴は、進化し続ける機能とカスタマイズ性です。こちらのロボット、こちらの写真がベースのユニットとなって、ここから各現場とかソリューションに合わせて使い勝手をカスタマイズすることができます。また、より重たいものを運びたいという現場に合わせて、サウザージャイアントという大型の機種をご用意していますし、より小さな環境で、巡回の作業なんかに使いたいというような場合には、サウザーミニという小型機をご用意しております。それぞれ共通のシステムで複数のラインナップご用意をしているというのが特徴になります。で、ロボットの動かし方、一つではなくて複数の機能が搭載されています。ボタンを押してついてくる自動追従ですね。それから手元のスティックで動かす手動の操縦というモードは、もう本当に現場に到着してすぐにでも使い始めていただけます。それから床に引いたラインに沿って走って、あとはマーカーを置いておくと分岐合流なんかをして複雑な目的地まで行けるというような機能もあります。それからガイドレスの走行方式としては、当社ではメモリトレースという独自の方式があります。これは周囲の風景と走行したルートとか各地点での速度、一時停止といったものを丸ごと記憶させて、すぐに同じところを自動走行できるという機能です。このようにサウザーは進化し続けることで多くのニーズに応えてきています。ここでこれまでご紹介した弊社製品の特徴について簡単なビデオがありますので、どうぞご覧ください。
ミトさん、すみません。声は出ないので、サウンドをシェアサウンド、チェックしてください。
はい、このようにさまざまな場面で使っていただいた運搬ロボットサウザーシリーズなんですけれども、発売して以来ですね、このようなロボットでやはり農業現場の作業負担も減らしたいというお声をたくさんいただいてました。ただ、車輪タイプだとどうしてもですね、走行可能な路面状態が限定されているというような、ところがありましたので、この度サウザーの技術を踏襲してクローラー型のロボットというものを発表しましたので、ご紹介していきます。こちらの写真に写っているのが新商品ですね。商品名メカロンと言います。クローラー型、足回りがクローラーのタイプになっていまして、アクロでも走ることができます。でもちろんサウザーの特徴である誰にでも簡単に使えるという点はそのまま踏襲しております。こちらも次のスライドで動画をご用意しているのでご覧いただきたいと思います。はい、このメカロン、我々はさまざまな農作業現場で使っていただきたいなというふうに考えております。なので、ちょっとこれからいくつか活用イメージというものをイラストで見ていただこうと思うんですけれども、例えば果樹の収穫作業ですね、収穫物とても重くて何往復もするのが大変だというような声を聞きます。これをメカロンにものを乗せて運搬すれば、作業者の方の負担は減らせます。さらに、そうですね、畑を耕すという作業ですね。これもメカロンにアタッチメントを取り付けが可能ですので、適切なアタッチメントをつけていただいて、耕すという作業を任せることもできます。さらに、農薬の散布だったりとか肥料運びといったものもやはり人にとっては辛い作業です。これも重たいタンクはメカロンに乗せて楽に運ぶことができます。また、そうですね、畜産の現場でもいろいろと重たいものを運んで飼料、餌であったりとか、消毒なんかもあると思います。こういったものもメカロンに任せることができます。また草刈りの作業、これもそうですね、なかなか大変な作業だと思います。重たいバッテリーを積めば人には負担になりますし、小さなバッテリーだと今度は何回も交換が必要だったりします。これもメカロンの荷台にバッテリーを乗せてもらうことで人の負担は減らせるというふうに考えます。このように今まで見ていただいた具体的な作業以外でも日々のいろいろな名前のない作業というものをメカロンに任せることができるのではないかと考えています。私たちはメカロンを一年中使える相棒として活用していただきたいと考えています。 以上、駆け足になりましたけれども、当社の事業と農業クローラーロボットメカロンについてご紹介をさせていただきました。どうもありがとうございました。
はい、お父様ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。
So now I would like to present AgriTech startups.
TAP is proud to present TAP Kit, grow your own hydroponic produce. The TAP Kit is an affordable hydroponic business. Our unique NFT hydroponic systems enable year-round production of high-quality leafy vegetables and fresh herbs. You only have to take care of the land preparation, and within less than a month for construction, the greenhouse is ready for planting and producing. And your small business will generate income 6 to 8 weeks later. The entire kit is delivered in a container which contains everything you need, from greenhouse foundation to produce packaging, including a 500 square meter plastic covered tunnel, hydroponic gullies and supporting frame, nursery equipment, irrigation and fertilization system, packing station with refrigeration. It also includes an advanced management app for professional day-to-day operating of the TAP Kit, from production and packaging to maintenance and troubleshooting. TAP Kits are already installed all around the globe in various climate areas with outstanding results. TAP Kit makes hydroponics accessible to small and medium-sized growers, amateurs and family farm, resorts, schools, community farming, organizational kitchens, and more. For the first time, hydroponic is made super simple to install, operate, and easily produce healthy and clean leafy vegetables and fresh herbs to supply the neighborhood market. So why do you need the TAP Kit? Because it is a smart business, an affordable investment with a short ROI. Because it is simple and easy. Easy to install, easy to operate, and no experience is needed. Because it is sustainable and it helps our planet. Because it helps people consume healthier, fresher, and safer food that is locally grown. So join us for the hydroponic revolution. TAP Kit. Affordable hydroponic business.
For centuries and through today, farmers traditionally go out into their fields every day to feel and smell the moisture of the roots and decide based on their intuition whether or not to water and in what quantity. This intuition was and still is the key to their success.
And now, SolChip, the company that invented the light battery, introduces a new way to communicate. In order to understand the needs of your crops, you need to listen, not guess. SolChip Communication Platform, or in short, SCC, is an autonomous platform for precision agriculture that allows you to measure soil moisture, air temperature and humidity, soil nutrients level, sun radiation, and much more. SCC has wireless communication built in that connects the sensors to the cloud and sends data multiple times a day, up to every 5 minutes. SolChip's SCC is small and easy to install. It's so small, it will not get in your way. It enables you to optimize your irrigation processes and respond to your plant's needs in real time. SolChip's SCC allows you to save up to 50% in water consumption. Goodbye pre-programmed irrigation systems. Welcome to precision agriculture. And you'll be surprised with SCC's low price. The device is solar-powered and maintenance-free for 10 years and more. This means there are no batteries that ever need to be changed. Years of research and development have brought to the agriculture world such a great small device, SolChip's SCC. In a few years, we won't understand how we did without it.
Sustainable Development Goals have designated zero hunger as one of the major goals for mankind to meet by 2030. Meanwhile, the agricultural industry is struggling with one of its greatest unsolved challenges, soil salinity. The financial damage caused by soil salinity is estimated by the FAO at $12 billion, affecting about 20% of irrigated agricultural land worldwide and growing. But Salicrop has the answer. A new proprietary seed treatment for existing seeds that allows crops to grow well in high salinity soils. This non-GM grass treatment can be tailored to specific crop varieties while remaining cost-effective and maintaining high profit margins. Salicrop has completed a series of successful proof-of-concept lab and field trials across a range of leading vegetable and grain crops, achieving significant results. Seed producers and distributors are all potential clients for this revolutionary solution. With Salicrop's technology, we can finally make use of the lost 20% of irrigated agricultural land, enable agricultural irrigation with salty water, increase growers' crop yields up to 30%, and take a significant step towards solving the imminent food crisis.
So now, last but not least, I'm pleased to invite one of most successful Israel's agri-tech innovation in the world. Their innovation brought an impact on world agriculture. I'm pleased to invite Mr. Ziv Kramer, Managing Director of Netafim Japan. Ziv, please.
Thank you for inviting me. So I'm Ziv Kramer. I'm the CEO of Netafim Japan and Northeast Asia region, which includes Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. I'm based in Japan, in Tokyo since 2008. And today I will share with you the story of Netafim and our activities in Japan. So let's start. Netafim was founded 56 years ago, actually, in a small kibbutz in the south part of Israel, in the Negev desert. This is an area with very limited water and rain. So they needed some kind of technology to enable agriculture, and they developed together with an engineer named Simcha Blas this drip irrigation. And the drip irrigation in general, I will explain in more details later, but with drip irrigation you can grow everywhere with a very small amount of water. So it has a lot of advantages. And Netafim grown quite quickly with this innovation and became the largest irrigation company. And nowadays, Netafim is not selling only drip. We have end-to-end solutions. I will talk about it in my presentation. So as I said, we are number 1 company in the world. Number 2, by the way, is less than half the size of Netafim. We have about 30% market share, global market share, 29 subsidiaries. We're active in over 100 countries. Our headquarters is in Israel. Revenues are over $1 billion, 17 factories, and about 5,000 employees in the world. This is our global presence. Our big markets are in the USA, India, Turkey. One second. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, good. And yeah, in some other countries, Africa is growing quite quickly. Japan is not that big yet for Netafim, but it's a growing market for us. So why the world needs Netafim or drip irrigation? First of all, there's a growing demand for food. Within 30 years from now, the population will become 30% larger. At the same time, the calorie consumption per capita is growing because people are becoming richer, they eat more. So the food production will need to increase by 60% in order to feed all the people 30 years from now. At the same time, the resources are getting more and more limited. The arable land is decreasing, and it will decrease by 20% by 2050. We expect 25% water deficit, and 4 billion people will live under severe water stress. Looking at the water use, about 70% of the water in the world is used for agriculture, for irrigation. But this 70% is irrigating only 20% of the farmland. About 80% is not irrigated at all. And this 20% of irrigation is mostly flood irrigation, like rice field, a very inefficient way and very not good for the environment. And only 5% is micro irrigation or drip. So we must be more efficient with our water use. This is some explanation about the irrigation methods. So again, 80% of the world is rain-fed without any, of the farmland is rain-fed without any irrigation. And 15% of the farmland is this flood irrigation with a very low irrigation efficiency, 40 to 60%. And the bigger problem is that it's very bad for the environment. With flood irrigation, the water always need to flow through the field, like in rice field. Waters are coming in and out. And when we give fertilizers and chemicals to the water, when we apply, all these chemicals are going into the river, the groundwater, and it's a very heavy polluter. And another problem is the gas emission, methane gas emission, which is greenhouse gas, and this is another problem of the rice fields and flooded fields. Another irrigation method is the pivot sprinklers, which is more efficient, of course, and this is about 4% of the farmland. And the drip irrigation with the highest efficiency of 90 to 95% is still only 1% out of the total farmland. So again, we must increase the pie of the drip irrigation, micro irrigation, in order to feed all the people in the world in coming years. What are the main advantages of the drip irrigation? So drip in general, drip irrigation is applying water and fertilizer directly to the root zones of the plants. So there is no waste. We give only the needed amount for the plants with minimal waste at the right timing. So the plants get the water and fertilizer, the water and food when they need them. So this methods saves about up to 70% of water and fertilizers. It's improved the yields and the plants' growth because the plants getting their needs whenever they need. It's reduced the soil and aquifer pollution. It's reduced weeds and diseases because the plants are staying dry. It enables automation and labor saving. And with drip, you can grow everywhere in any soil, any topography. There's no limitation. And as I said, Netafim started with drip irrigation, but it's not only about drip. We have the full solutions for all type of irrigation. We supply from the water supply to the pumps, the filters, the control systems, and we do all this designing of projects and implementation and after-sale support services. We do also greenhouses. So nowadays we are actually active in many fields, and drip is still the core product, but we do much more than just drip. I will show you a short movie about the future of agriculture. Hope you can see it good.
No sound, Ziv. There is no sound of the video.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it, but no video. No sound.
No sound.
Once you share your screen, on the left bottom, there is an option to share sound too.
So let's skip the movie. You cannot hear the sound, right?
You share your screen again. Once you press share screen, on the left bottom, when you choose which screen, you will have an option to share sound too.
Okay, good. Let's try again. Can you hear it now?
Yes, yes.
More than 50 years ago, Netafim was founded on a small kibbutz in Israel and introduced drip irrigation to the world. Drop by drop, field by field, we have become the world's largest irrigation company, leading the drip irrigation revolution and helping the world grow more with less. And now it's time for us to move on to the next stage, offering end-to-end smart irrigation solutions that address every need, from the water source to the plant's root, presenting a diverse portfolio of products and services, starting with unique financing capabilities and best-in-class planning through leading agronomic and technical know-how to cutting-edge innovative irrigation technology. We will accelerate the growth and drive mass adoption of smart irrigation solutions by investing significant efforts and resources in developing emerging markets, deploying large-scale irrigation projects, and increasing the penetration in commodity crops. Sophisticated robots and automated systems will drive simplicity in irrigation, reducing the dependence on working hands and natural resources. Advanced sensors, satellites, and data management systems will help farmers to control and monitor their fields from the palm of their hands, facilitating precise agriculture and allowing them to benefit from better yield and greater peace of mind. Together with our partners for success, we will lead the change for a sustainable future. Netafim. Grow more with less.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is about the future, and actually the future is already here. Netafim launched about 2 years ago the first real AI irrigation system called NetBit. This system is collecting data from the field with many kinds of sensors in the soil, weather station, sensors on the plants, collecting all this data, analyzing, and taking decisions for the exact amount of irrigation and fertilizer for different kind of crops. We have different crop models in the software, and in theory, the system can grow, let's say, tomatoes by itself. Once you make the basic settings in your field, the system will check the data and give the water and fertilizer and grow the tomatoes according to the stages of the plants. This photo, by the way, is from taken from NHK TV Morning News that was broadcasting our first installation in Japan of this system. If we'll have time, I will show it a short broadcast. But why do we need in Japan any drip irrigation? Why do we need to save water in Japan? Why do we need Netafim? Because as you all know, there's a lot of rain in Japan, about 1,700 millimeters all year around. The summer is wet and humid, very different from Israel or other countries. And also when we look on the land, on the farmland in Japan, farmland is very limited. Only 12% out of the land is for farming, 4 million hectares. It's very small. And over 50% of this land is used for rice, paddy field, which is, as we said, it's flood irrigation. Currently, they are not using any different irrigation methods. And then we have 28% of field crops, 6% of orchards or permanent crops, and only 1%, 50,000 hectares of covered crops or greenhouses, which need for sure some kind of irrigation because it's grown under a roof and some kind of technology. So this is actually our main market in Japan. And there's also 12% which is uncultivated at all. And another problem is, as mentioned before in this webinar, is the problems of the agricultural sector in Japan. The farmland is decreasing rapidly. It was decreased by 30% the last 25 years. Numbers of farmers also dropped by 60%. The average farm size in Japan is tiny, 1.8 hectare, comparing to Israel, 22 hectares, the USA, 180 hectares. Holland and Europe is about 40 to 60 hectares in average. So Japan, the farms are really small. Farmers are very old, 50% are over 70. And over 70% of the farmers or the farm families, the main income is not coming from farming. It's actually like a hobby farming, part-time farming. Only 2% of new farmers are choosing field farming, and 75% of the new farmers are choosing horticulture or greenhouse crops, which contributes to 40% of the agricultural production. So again, greenhouse crops for Netafim is the main market in Japan because of these reasons, because you must use some kind of irrigation and technology. Also, the younger farmers are choosing this horticulture, which is more advanced. So this is our main segment in Japan. But we do also other things. We do orchards, mainly tea and mikan, and we do a lot of landscape also. I will explain about it later. So what are these greenhouses? The greenhouses or horticulture, we divide it to two segments in Japan. There's the high-tech greenhouse, which are really the top tech greenhouses, plant factories. These are usually large greenhouses, like as you can see in the photo below, 1 to 5 hectares. 1 hectare is 10,000 square meters. So it's quite large and made of glass usually and high roof. And it's fully automated with climate control and water recycling. So there is no waste. The cultivation is very intense. They grow all year round. Main crops are tomatoes, paprika, strawberries, and very high production and high quality of fruits. The customers of these projects, of these greenhouses, are usually large companies that have the budget because it's quite expensive. And we have over 40% of these projects. In this case, we do a full turnkey project. We do the design, the installation of this project, and then all the services, after-sale services, technical services, and if needed, also agronomy services to the customers. And then there is a much larger market of low to mid-tech greenhouses. In this case, we are not selling we're not selling a project or a turnkey project. We just sell equipment through distributors in Japan or some partners, irrigation equipment. The equipment is much more simple. Zen or JA is one of our big partners for this kind because JA is supporting a lot of small farmers. They buy from us the equipment and sell to the farmers. And we have some other collaborations in Japan with other companies. And then orchard or permanent crops, it's also an important segment for us. The biggest segment is in tea, I would say, tea, but also mikan is quite big, and recently apples and also grapes. In tea, for example, the reason to use drip irrigation is mainly because they need to reduce the fertilizer. Tea requires a lot of fertilizer, a lot of nitrogen in order to make a tasty tea. And there's a problem in areas like Shizuoka where they grow a lot of tea, that the fertilizer is polluting the groundwater, and there's some regulations. They must reduce the amount of fertilizer, so they change from traditional way to drip irrigation and reducing 70% of the fertilizers. In Mikan or citrus, it's a different reason. In order to have sweet fruits, they need to control the water and fertilizer. If it gets too much water, it will not be tasty. So they cover the soil with some kind of film to reduce the amount of water from rain, and they irrigate with drip irrigation under this cover. They give water and fertilizer and make a very tasty mikan. And apples, grapes is quite similar to the mikan, same story, to make quality fruits. This is an example of a large project that we are actually installing now in Yamaguchi. It's 22 hectares of tea farm under solar panels. This tea is used for matcha, for tea powder, so it needs some kind of shadow. So it's a good combination to do it under solar panels. So you can see here the farm. You can see it very well from Google Earth even. It's quite large. We are using this AI system, NetBit, to control. We have 4 units of NetBit to control this entire area. And now they're actually installing the drip irrigation. The drip is inside the soil to have even more efficient irrigation. They bury it inside the soil before planting. And we also do some field vegetables, which is, as I said, it's not very obvious, but once you do it right, you can get good results even in the rainy Japan. Here again, Zeno is one of our partners. They found that changing to drip irrigation, they can increase the yields of onion, for example, by 40%. They even publish it and they promote these systems. But also with other crops, you can see good results when you use the system correctly. Of course, you increase the yields, but at the same time, you use much less fertilizer and water, so it's good for the environment, labor saving, and many other advantages that I mentioned. This is an example of a project that we did last year in Okinawa of field vegetables. They grow carrot, pumpkin, potato, some other vegetables also. It's 10 hectares, and again, controlled by our AI system, by the NetBit. And then the last segment that I mentioned, the landscape gardens, what Arya mentioned in his lecture. We do a lot of green roofs in Japan, mainly in the big cities, in Tokyo, in Osaka. Also green walls. There's some regulations, city regulations, that the new building must be covered by 20% with green. So it's quite a big business for us. This photo, by the way, is from Toyosu, the new fish market, the roof, green roof. This is Pasona building. I will show some more photos. And Tokyo Olympics, by the way, is the main stadium and Olympic Village are all irrigated by Netafim. We did the design, and our dealer made the installation of the system. Very nice project. These are some photos from this Pasona building. It's actually an urban farm. They grow not only flowers or grain, they grow some vegetables. They used to grow, by the way, this building was gone recently. But they used to grow here some vegetables inside the building, in the balconies, on the roof. And all the irrigation and fertigation is done from a single system on the roof of the building. It makes 3 kinds of fertilizers and give very accurate program of water and fertilizer to each crop in the building, exactly the needed amount. So it's a very sophisticated and a nice system that we did. This is actually my last slide. just I wanted to mention about the Toku, because this month, as you know, it will be 10 years since the disaster in Miyagi and Fukushima. We did a lot of activities in this region since 2011. We started with donations together with the Israeli embassy in Fukushima and Miyagi area of irrigation systems to farmers that lost their farms. And then after we made quite a lot of large plant factories, greenhouses in Miyagi and Fukushima. You can see them very well in Google Earth. They're all above 1 hectare each greenhouse, and very high-tech greenhouses to replace all the small farms that were destroyed. And these days we are again donating a small system in Watali. There's a Watali menorah farm. Maybe some of you heard about it. Celia, NPO. We are collaborating with her on this. It will be a demonstration farm for Israeli ag technologies. We are using here again our AI system, NetBeat, and it will be ready just before the ceremony on 10th of March. So you're welcome to visit. And that's all. So see you all in Tokyo Olympics. And don't forget to look for the Netafim drippers inside the all the plants. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziv. And thank you, Netafim, for all your contribution to agriculture, and especially to Japanese market.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
So thank you, and thank you for all the speakers and participants. I hope you enjoyed our webinar. 皆様ご参加いただきありがとうございました。今回のウェビナーの次のイベントは日本で企画予定しておりますので、そちらへのご参加も期待しております。なお、次回の日本でのイベントの共同企画をご希望の際、ぜひご連絡いただければ光栄です。ありがとうございました。Now, I want to give a special thank to our member and interns of IJWIN, to Hadas Kushilevich, who has just given birth to her second son and participated in all our meetings with a baby, even a couple of hours after her labor from the hospital in Japan. To Sharon Almog, who has contributed to this event with her best knowledge of the vegan world as a vegan food specialist. To Noah Meidan and Shira Yaakov, our sweet interns studying about Japan in Hebrew University, who dedicated to this event as it was their own project and worked day and night. To our IGWIN founders, Tomoko-san, Naomi-san, and Yoiko-san, I hope to see you in the next event in Japan and in our other IJWIN activities. We all invite you to join to IJWIN. I want to conclude with a short story. When I grew up in Japan with an ecological activist Japanese mother, after living in the city life in Saitama Prefecture for a couple of years, she decided to go all the way and become an organic farmer in the small community in the Japanese Buddhism temple on the top of beautiful bamboo forest in Chiba. At that time, I was furious of poor awareness of people towards ecological issues. After 20 years, the climate crisis is knocking on our door, and I think we all must act today. Today, I heard many wonderful people with their activities and innovation that will help us and our planet. So thank you all and hope to see you in our next event in Japan.